Hello, everybody. I am Amanda Benjamin.
I'm still Paul Carganilla, somehow. And we welcome you to our mystifying show in which we explore mysteries of the unknown.
In this live stream and podcast, we'll tell tales of the paranormal and unsolved, while mixing in a little fun and live music as well.
And in this long-awaited episode, we will continue to explore the puzzling and cryptic topic of hauntings, but this time we're focusing on haunted places.
Welcome to the Magical Mystery Hour.
If you're listening to the audio podcast of this episode, we invite you to find this show on our YouTube channel, the Vaudacity Network, where you can view any images or videos we share throughout these stories and see our faces as well.
That's right. So be sure to subscribe to the Magical Mystery Hour wherever you consume your podcasts.
This episode is sponsored by our friend Emily Thatcher. Emily brings us a very timely quote from Matthew Perry, who we tragically lost just a couple of days ago.
Matthew once said, "There is nothing better than a world where everybody's just trying to make each other laugh." Which I love. That is so true.
And you were a huge fan of Friends, right?
No, I like Friends. I don't know. I never rewatched it. Like I watched the whole thing and then I don't know. I kind of like let it live, rather than rewatch and analyze and stuff. But I loved him, especially Matthew Perry, and I loved Fool's Russian, and he was incredible on West Wing. He's just such a Scrubs. I loved his one episode on Scrubs was great. I thought he was such
Yards
a cool. Yes, that's another great one. I love. He did so many great
Matthew Perry films, and you see the quote online where he said not too long ago, I hope I'm remembered for not just Friends, but the people that I helped along the way and the other things I did in my career, which is so understandable. Like I think about that with Everly a lot of times. You don't want to just become the Spy Kids girl.
Yes.
Like you want to do other things in your life. So, which
I'm sure she will, knowing Everly.
I just, I think about him and that mindset and what it must have, when Friends ended, they all went and did other things. Courtney did Scream, and Jennifer's just done like everything. Joey had the Joey Show. Matt had the Joey Show, and
they've all done interesting things.
But I was just thinking it must be like to be an iconic character, like you're Chandler Bing.
Yeah,
like,
that's what people will see you as, and it's hard to get past. Craig's like, you need to sit up, and I'm like, yes. I was just trying to avoid having this light in my face.
Thank you everybody in the YouTube chat for being here, and thank you especially for the feedback.
Is there feedback on the
we can't
chat?
Hear how it sounds.
Tell us, Paul. Okay.
Yeah, I turned up a little bit. Let me know if it's good, because it is very important to be balanced, especially on a podcast.
It is. Yes. So thank you. I also, with Matthew Perry, like I love, because in that same quote he talks about how he started the Perry House, which is like a sober living for men, a community for men, which is incredible, and him being so open about his struggles with addiction is just incredible. Like it's something that so many people just, I want to hide that, or I want to, never talk about that again. And it was amazing.
Well, it's something, so it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
But it's, something that so many people, such a large percentage of people deal with, that it is important to normalize it, or not normalize it, but like show that you're not alone out there if you're having struggles. So, we're huge advocates of mental health here on the Vaudacity Network. And so we appreciate all of the great work that he did, and everybody out there who's working to help others to heal and inspire others through their pain.
Very important. So thank you for all that you did, Matthew Perry.
Yes, thank you. Matthew, we honor you in your career, not just your career, but all of the humanitarian work that you did as well, sir. All right.
All right.
Well, speaking of dead people.
Oh no.
No. Here we are to tell ghost stories and stories about haunted places.
Yes.
This is something when we a year ago, I guess, we did our first guest.
Yeah. Ghost. Yeah, a year ago. I just had all those memories pop up on Facebook. And I was like, oh my God.
And we were like, we have to have several ghost episodes because there's so many great ghost stories out there. But, 11 months later, here we are.
Well, there's just so much cool stuff. Like, when we first talked about doing this show, I remember, like, because we originally did the thing at the year mark of Audacity where we're like, well, let's add shows other than the picnic. And we're like, cool, let's make more shows. I think we had Lovecast, right? We had, like, the picnic and Lovecast and Quarantine, right? Yep. Pretty much. I think there might have been a few other things that were flying around.
Yeah.
But we said, okay, let's do some more shows. And we did. And then after a while, the show kind of popped into my head. I was like, we should. And I told Paul, I was like, that's it. We just should do a ghost story show. And Paul was like, you had me at ghost stories. I'm in. And then you were like, well, we shouldn't limit ourselves to ghost stories. And I was like, right. You are correct.
Our first episode wasn't even ghosts.
It wasn't.
It was conspiracies.
Well, we kind of wanted to save the ghosts for October.
Right. And here we are on Thanksgiving Eve already. Here.
Oh, God, no.
Here we are on Halloween Eve.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we didn't even plan, as Angelica says in the live chat, we didn't plan on wearing matching shirts.
Oh, yeah.
But we're kind of both in green. Is that green?
It's actually kind of gray, but I have this like colored light coming in, so it looks a little green. But it's like a Ouija board, so I thought it's appropriate for my story. Although, like, yeah, you can't really see it now.
That is a Ouija board that only David may use.
So I tell this story a lot to other teachers at school. So I wore this to school my first Halloween there, which is last Halloween, I think. And or no, I don't know. Was it last Halloween or two? I don't know anymore. 2 Halloweens ago. But I wore this and I asked the principal ahead of time. I was like, this is fine, right? Like nobody's going to get mad at me for wearing this. She said, yeah, it's great. Great. So I went in class and I said, and I think it was even in the same class. So one girl, she like raises her hand and she's like, is that, oh no. A boy raises his hand and he goes, is that and he couldn't think of the word. And I was like, a Ouija board? And he said, yes. And then a girl raised her hand. She's like, what if you were like touching your shirt and you accidentally summoned something? And I was like, that's not how it works. She's like, but what if? And I'm like, that's not going to happen. But what if? But that's not how it works. But what if?
What if right in the middle of music class, instruments started flying like in the Haunted Mansion?
And then the boy, I always laugh because the boy goes, yeah, those things will mess up your life, man.
Yes.
Like, what is a ghost of like the like Vietnam War in your possessing you right now? Those things will mess up your life, man.
Now I remember that story. You started to tell it and I was like, that sounds familiar, but now
yes, now you remember.
Those things will mess up your life.
And I always say like, I want to make a YouTube short with that. Like, and I'll just be all the characters. I'll just be me and like a little girl in pigtails or something and a little boy in a hat.
Yeah, you should do that.
But what
that's
if?
a huge thing right now. Like people playing the same character in their videos and their scenes. Like it's not the same character, but
yeah, all one person playing all the characters. That's one I want to make. So nobody's allowed to steal it now because I put it on YouTube. It's now my intellectual property.
Yes, it is copywritten in the stars. And Matt King mentions in the live chat, he and Krista just watched The Haunted Man Saturday night.
Yes.
I'm wearing my shirt. And yeah, so I started, I was mailing them out to the Kickstarters and people started messaging me saying, I have no way to play this Blu-ray. Is it anywhere to stream? And I was just like, you know what, we'll put it on YouTube because of the long bumpy road that was getting The Haunted Man out and into the world and then COVID and then It's on YouTube now. So if you want to watch my original film, The Haunted Man, just search The Haunted Man, Paul Carganilla on YouTube. It's on my Cove channel. So if you're subscribed to Cove Podcast, covetube.com, you can watch it there. And what a perfect watch for tonight or tomorrow night or whenever you're in the spooky mood.
How long will it be up? Or is it up forever now?
It's up.
All right. Because I think we used to take it down. Oh, no, that's Sparked, right? That used to take it down?
Sparks used to come out for a week every holiday season.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Haunted Man's staying on. Okay. So I can watch it.
Haunted Man is out there. Yeah.
Soon.
It's out.
Great.
If you still have, I know I gave you a disc. If you still have a player, you can use that. But if you'd prefer YouTube, it is on YouTube for consumption. Halloween consumption.
Yes.
So tonight, as we mentioned, we're talking about ghosts and ghost stories, and I'm going to be talking about the Haunted Man a lot more tonight later on.
Woo!
Because I like haunted locations, and we actually filmed the Haunted Man in a haunted location. I might tell a couple of stories from that, and first is, of course, on every live streamed Magical Mystery Hour. We get to hear from Amanda. She puts a lot of care and effort and intelligence into her story writing, whereas mine is just like shiny object.
I love it, though. I think it's such a cool contrast. And I always say I love to tell the stories that way, but I like to listen to them in Paul's style. So I get like the best of both worlds in this podcast.
All right. Well, I'm glad you do, since you are.
I do, because it's so like conversational, and I'm like, it's nice. I'm just talking, and I love it. But I'm such a weird perfectionist that I'm always like, oh God, I need to write it out, or else I'm gonna go the whole time. Which don't worry, I am going to edit that out of the podcast. You don't need to hear me do that without the visuals.
I don't know. We might get some more subscribers.
Oh, maybe.
Well, I found out what you're doing because it's in the YouTube. It's in the YouTube
chat. Oh yeah, I took a guess at what yours was, but so I'll change it when I find out what you're really doing.
And you know the catalog of popular songs about ghosts is pretty shallow.
It is a little. You have to kind of.
Sometimes you have to get creative.
Yes.
So I'm doing one that it kind of ties in the whole seeing you ghosts thing and places all together.
Ooh.
But it is it's this tune that I love. Sinatra did it. Billie Holiday. I think Billie Holiday made it popular. But here's an old school tune, kind of literally about haunting your memories. Speaking of memories,
yes,
Amanda on Demando Wednesday night.
Yes.
But here's a little Irving Cahal and Sammy Fain 1938 tune. I'll Be Seeing You.
Oh, all right.
I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places that this heart of mine embraces all day through. In that small cafe, the park across the way, the children's carousel the chestnut trees, the wishing well. I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's day, in everything that's bright and gay. I'll always think of you that way. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is new, I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is new, I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you.
That was beautiful. Love it.
It's a beautiful song.
I was saying, I always love when you do these like old timey songs. I'm like, oh, they're so good.
Thanks.
Nachos
A lot of it, there's a lot of those old timey songs, you know, have very complicated jazz chords. So
Yes.
there's a lot of strange things that happen there when I try to play them. But
I just started learning this like jazzy bossa nova piece, and it's so cool. It's got like dun 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 dun.
Oh, those are so good, especially on electric guitars.
I'm like, ooh, but it's a lot of. It is. Your hands are just like, this isn't a chord. Like what? I just have to remember. I mean, they are chords, but they're not what you think, and they're always like way up high on the frets. You're like 9, 13.
Finger spaghetti.
Yeah. But it's great. They sound great.
Yes. Well, you know what else sounds great are Amanda Benjamin's stories whenever she tells one. And we're about to get a ghost story, or at least some ghost stories about a haunted location as told by Amanda Benjamin. I cannot wait. So when we decided the episode would be about haunted locations, what jumped into your brain and why?
Well, a location that I grew up practically next to, probably like 15 minutes away, and never went.
Have you never been there, or you just didn't go when you were growing up?
No, I've never been there. I mean, I've obviously driven past it. I've been around it, but I've never been inside. And I've told David, and then I've been wanting to go for years now. Like, I've been like, no, we're going to go. And then I told David, like, on our next trip, we are going.
Yeah.
And that is the Winchester Mystery House.
Ooh.
Yeah. So we're going to take a minute and learn about it and see what we think is going on there.
Can't wait.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to get my music started. And let's get going. Grief is a terrible, terrible thing. It is an unwelcome guest that never truly leaves you once it arrives. Many of us have suffered the loss of a loved one, which weighs heavily on your heart. And the question is, does that person really, truly leave us? Or do they stay near us somehow, unheard and unseen, observing our lives as time marches steadily on? Let me tell you a little story. So my grandpa died when I was about 12, and it still remains one of the most traumatic moments of my life. I was not ready for this. And I often go back and I just visit those moments in the last year of his life. And I remember standing by his bedside when I handed him a card that I had made and painted in school, just especially for him. And he came to tears when he read it. And I remember doctors and hospitals. For some reason, I always remember that little blue hat he used to wear. And I remember that my sister and I were the last people to visit him in the hospital while he was still conscious. And we sat on either side of the bed and just chatted for a long time. And he was in really good spirits. And I remember his laughter was ringing through the room. And that last year had such an impact on my life and the person that I've become. I can't even tell you how much. I remember very clearly the night that my grandpa actually passed. I came home and I went to my room, which used to be my brother's room. We did some shuffling. And there was this dresser near the foot of the bed, and it had a mirror attached to the top. And I sat in the chair in front of the mirror, just looking in it, reflecting. Silent. Time seemed to stand still, and it had no meaning anymore. Eventually, I was tired enough to actually fall asleep, so I laid down. And I opened my eyes hours later. I noticed that the chair from that desk had been moved. It was right next to me, as if somebody had been watching over me in my sleep. Now, I figured that my mom had come into my room, just taking in the events that had changed her life forever. When I went downstairs the next morning, my mom had made the family breakfast, and I sat down at the table. I started eating, and I just kind of asked, "Hey, Mom, did you come into my room last night?" I said, "No." "Why?" I was surprised, but I turned to my dad, who was sitting to my right. I posed the same question. And another negative response. I started to become concerned. So I asked everybody else, and no one said they came into my room. Could it be that my grandfather, just thankful for all the sacrifices I'd made in that last year of his life, had come to visit me at the bedside one more time in the physical world? Was he letting me know that he wasn't in pain? He wasn't suffering anymore? Who can say for sure? But it's really nice to think so. And for the record, that would not be what I consider my last visit from my grandpa, but that'll be a story for another show.
Anniversary year number 2.
Yeah, that'll be it.
Wow, yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was so strange. I have no idea what happened. And like I said, I'm sure somebody out there would say you were sleepwalking or whatever it was. But I said, for me, it's a comfort. And so that's what I think happens.
No, a lot of, I've heard that too. I have a cousin who is very sensitive, and in that sense of sensitive. And my grandfather died in the house that I'm going to talk about in just a little bit. Oh. But he remembers very vividly a visit from my grandfather the night that he passed in a dream. But he came and sat on his bed and talked to him. And they talked about how the last year, because he had a stroke and then he was paralyzed most of his body. And the last year was really hard. But yeah, they talked about how that whole year was. Like, they had a very in-depth conversation, and then he was gone. And that's like, I mean, we've talked about on the show like when kids are born, like the first 4 or 5, 6 years of their life, they still feel close to the other side. They have memories of it. And then I feel like it's kind of like, you know, that transitional period where maybe the night your soul leaves your body, you get to go visit in dreams or on the bedside. And yeah, I mean, I would totally, if I were a betting man, I would bet that Grandpa came and sat with you.
Yeah, I'll have to. Maybe we should get that story. Wait, you said it was your cousin, right?
Yeah.
And we can compare notes with how my dream stories go and see if we find some similarities.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. Anyways. So, needless to say, the death of my grandfather caused me a great deal of grief. And I still live with that today. Just last week on my show, which you should know is Amanda on Demanda, I sang a song and I just started tearing up. And my dad, after the song, had said that it made him think of my grandfather. And I think about him every day. And so in that, he affects a lot of the decisions I make, the actions that I take. And this makes me think of the woman at the center of this story. A woman who was haunted by grief and took matters into her own hands to save her life and sanity. A woman with power and money unheard of in the late 1800s. My story tonight is the legend of Sally, often known as Sarah, Winchester, and the haunting of the Winchester Mystery House. So, imagine yourself, a citizen of San Jose in the early 1900s, a time when the cityscape was dominated by the mysterious Winchester House, hidden behind walls of overgrown greenery, and rumors swirled through the community about the house and its elusive owner, Sarah, who goes by Sally Winchester. She was the widow of the firearms magnate William Wirt Winchester, and she lived her life draped in perpetual mourning black. In fact, she was never seen in public without gloves and a funeral veil obscuring her face. But what captivated the public's imagination even more were the constant renovations and expansions of her mansion. Why did she continue building, creating a literal maze of bewildering architecture? And why was the house shrouded in secrecy, with visitors from local leaders to the President of the United States not allowed inside its foreboding gates? As we delve into the depths of the Winchester Mystery House, we'll seek answers to these haunting questions and unravel the strange legacy of Mrs. Winchester. Yeah, she literally turned away the president. She's like, no thanks. And there's kind of like there were two possible presidential visits. One, he was not interested. Another one, she said, no visitors, please.
Wow.
How crazy is that?
Like, I'm doing important work in here, and the president is not part of my plan.
No.
So
bye.
Move along.
Yes. So let's step into the intriguing backstory of Miss Winchester. Born Sarah Lockwood Pardee in the warmth of the summer in 1839. We're pretty sure, because that date is contested. She hailed from the picturesque town of New Haven, Connecticut. Despite being named Sarah after her grandmother, family and friends called her Sally, and in the future, all her correspondence carried this name. So I'm going to do my best to call her Sally, because that's what she would have liked. But a lot of us know her as Sarah Winchester. Sally's early life was filled with privilege due to the wealth her family bestowed upon her. Yet, beneath the veneer of beauty and wealth lay an astounding child. She was a prodigy in every sense, a linguistic virtuoso, fluent in not one, not two, but 4 languages. She spoke French, Latin, Spanish, and Italian. And it didn't stop there. Music found its way into her heart as well, with Sally taking private music lessons that resonated with her soul. Sally's father was a skilled craftsman who had a mill and a wood shop called Leonard Pardee and Company. And he instilled a love of architecture and woodworking that she would forever carry in her heart. Her family was progressive for their time. standing boldly on the front lines of a religious and a philanthropic revolution. Their voices resounded, echoing in the halls of history as they championed causes like abolition, suffrage, animal rights. Sally, in particular, carried the torch of animal rights activism, even to the extent of protecting innocent robins from young boys trying to hunt on her property. She kicked him out.
Nice.
Yeah, she's like, no.
Hunting robins. I can't say that I've seen any robins around my property, but if I had, I would protect them.
I know, yeah. Like, imagine like little boys being like, we want to catch your butterflies when you guys are, raising your little butterflies.
Right.
Yeah, you're like, no way. I love those.
Get out of here.
Yeah. So this is where the journey of Sally Winchester truly begins. The Party family had considerable wealth and status in New Haven, but no one had more than their neighbors, the Winchesters. Oliver Fisher Winchester was a renowned firearms manufacturer and the founder of the Winchester Repeating Arms Company, a name that would become legendary in American history. The Parties and their progressive ideals really resonated with the Winchester family, and the two became close friends. They spent a lot of time together over the years. And amid these close-knit circumstances, these shared values, a romance slowly began to bloom between Sarah and William Winchester. A love story that would continue and be remembered forever. Now, Sally and William married September 30th, 1862. During this time, the nation was being torn apart, but due to the Civil War. And that war brought shortages, prompting the newlyweds to actually share their lives and home with William's parents. Through this whole ordeal, they held on to a dream of building their own home, perched high on Prospect Hill. And the realization of that dream would be touched by tragedy. In 1866, the year that construction finally began, their lives took a heartbreaking turn. On June 15th of that year, Sally gave birth to a baby girl, Annie, a poignant tribute to William's late sister, who had recently died during childbirth. However, their joy was short-lived when it became apparent that Annie was not thriving. The family doctor diagnosed the frail child with marasmus. It's a severe form of malnutrition due to the body's inability to metabolize proteins. That basically means that she couldn't absorb any nutrients, so she just very slowly starved. A little over a month after her birth, Annie passed away, leaving Sally and William devastated.
Can you imagine, like, you don't even get to know your child yet? Like a month in?
Yeah.
How many personality quirks have you been able to observe before they're actually just gone? Mm-hmm. And then your memories of them are just, I say, just a newborn.
You're right.
You don't have you don't even have any hint of who they were about to be, really.
Mm-hmm. I know, it's devastating. And your memories of them are all, them wasting. Because you didn't even have time with them as something healthy. You might have had a few days. But I can't imagine what that would feel like. It'd be awful. Yeah, so very sad. In their grief, the couple retreated from society. Sally secluded herself within the walls of the home for a year. She never left. However, it was during that time that the couple found a unique form of solace. Amidst their grief, they became consumed by the construction of their home on Prospect Hill. The Winchester mansion would soon take shape, born from the depths of their shared passion for architecture and home design. And even art would become particularly dear to Sally. She ventured further, immersing herself in real estate investment and financial strategies. Remember, she's a really smart woman. Again, women just didn't do that kind of thing back then. But she was like, hey, I have a lot to offer. I'm sharp. My husband's running a company and doing all he can. I can do this. So yeah, she embarked on this journey under the guidance of her father-in-law. So that's really cool.
Strong woman.
Yeah, I love it. So now let's fast forward a bit to 1868. The Winchesters were finally able to behold their opulent creation, all its glory. The architectural marvel was a staggering 20,000 square feet, a sprawling testament to their shared vision. With more than 20 rooms, marble floors, the whole shebang. It's just grand. They had huge windows. They had a circular driveway. It was, without a doubt, one of their wonderful, joyful moments, but it would also be one of their last joyful memories. The path ahead of Sally would be marred by yet more tragedy. In June 1869, her world was shattered as her father, a pillar in her life, succumbed to rheumatoid arthritis at the age of 60. He had a very, very severe case and death. The storm clouds continued to gather for Sally, and between 1880 and 1881, they unleashed a relentless deluge of heartache. In the span of just 1 year, Sally would bear the weight of not one, not two, but 3 devastating losses. First, her mother, in May of 1880, would leave the world and a void in Sally that could not be filled. Then her mentor, right, that guiding light in her life, Oliver Winchester, breathed his last breath in December of the same year. And the final blow, the cruelest of all, was delivered March 1881, when William Winchester, her beloved husband, was claimed by tuberculosis. In the wake of this devastating succession of losses, Sally chose to retreat, seeking solace by the seashore before embarking on a 3-year journey across Europe, a pilgrimage of self-discovery and healing. In our quest to unveil the secrets of the Winchester Mystery House, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment in the saga of Sally Winchester. After the heart-wrenching loss of her husband, Sally found herself inheriting a substantial fortune, a testament to the immense wealth that the Winchesters had amassed through their firearms industry. William had just recently put her in his will as in charge of the factory, getting all of the money, everything, which again, unheard of at the time. But again, I'm sure he knew just how brilliant she was and that she learned everything from his father. She worked with him, I'm sure. She knew what he was doing and he trusted her. This newfound wealth provided her with the means to secure her future. And she embarked on a mission of personal reinvention, a journey that would eventually lead her to an 8-bedroom farmhouse in San Jose, California. She would name the house Llanada Villa, after a wonderful memory she had with William Winchester. But this was no ordinary acquisition. It marked the genesis of her enduring obsession. The farmhouse, at first glance, seemed like a typical residence, but little did anyone know that Sarah was on the cusp of a remarkable transformation. With relentless determination, she began the process of turning this unassuming house into the sprawling architectural wonder that would come to be known as the Winchester Mystery House. In her hands, the ordinary soon became extraordinary, a labyrinthine masterpiece of eccentric design, with staircases leading to nowhere, doors on upper floors that would open to a drop down to the ground below, and seemingly endless corridors. It was here, in the heart of this transformation, that the legend of Sarah Winchester would take root, setting the stage for a mystery filled with intrigue and tantalizing questions of why. Why on earth would anyone build a home like this? The ceaseless construction of the Winchester Mystery House has long been a source of fascination and intrigue, giving rise to a multitude of theories about Sarah's motivations. These theories, like the mansion itself, are shrouded in mystery and continue to captivate the imagination of those who ponder the enigmatic woman behind the mansion.
So fascinating, right? When people around you are just like judging you and saying, that lady's crazy. Like, but they have no idea what's going on.
No, they just assume, right?
Yeah. Still today, people are like, what was she? What?
Yeah, I know. And well, I'll talk about a little bit of that later. But yeah, it's still a mystery today. We don't know. But I'm going to give you some theories on why people think she was just constantly building. First of all, the most commonly believed theory is that it had to do with spiritualism and ghostly beliefs. One of the most enduring theories suggests that Sarah Winchester's obsession with continuous construction was tied to her profound belief in spiritualism. Following the tragic loss of her husband and daughter, she is said to have sought the counsel of a Boston medium who may have convinced her that malevolent spirits of Native Americans, Civil War soldiers, and in fact, anyone who had ever been killed by a Winchester rifle would forever haunt her life. The ever-expanding mansion was thought to be a means of appeasing these restless souls by providing them with an eternal, confusing maze that would deter their presence. Did you have something?
I love that. I haven't been there. Like, I've heard about it, and I've talked to people who have been there. But it's just like, not just the structure in itself, but the idea that like that's the whole, people, obviously actors. What's my motivation? Like if that's the motivation, right? That's so fascinating.
It is. And another theory, it kind of goes hand in hand. This theory posits that Sally was burdened by the vast fortune that she inherited through the Winchester Repeating Arms Company. And then she also believed, right, that the victims from the bloodshed caused by the firearms that she was profiting off of were haunting her. So this, instead of being a house for them, the act of building was actually penitence. So she would have to keep constructing as a form of atonement, right? Ceaseless building could be seen as her attempt to build a never-ending sanctuary for those wronged by her family's industry. So as I said, a very similar one, but instead of it being about confusing the ghosts and getting them away from her, it's building them a home.
Love that too.
I know.
Almost like Ghostbusters, but it's not the vault.
Yeah.
It's like, you come live here.
Yeah.
And live out the rest of your undead.
Yeah.
Your
maybe until you're
years.
ready to pass on.
Yeah.
So another theory is talking about her passion for architecture. Some believe that Sarah Winchester's motivations were actually driven by a genuine passion for architecture and design. The sprawling mansion could be viewed as a canvas for her creative expression, with each peculiar addition just serving as a testament to her love for aesthetics. This theory suggests that she reveled in the process of crafting a unique and ever-evolving masterpiece. Her father, after all, had been a woodworker, and she loved building things with her hands. She fell in love with architecture when she was with William and when they built their dream home. So perhaps she was just reveling in memories of happier times. Maybe she designed each piece of her house by hand as a way to move through it. Very possible.
Nobody knows your own path but yourself.
Exactly.
I mean, better than yourself.
Yes.
In my house, and I build it how I want, and I know how to get around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can get lost in that house for sure. Another theory is just it was about isolation and privacy. With each addition to the house, the mansion's layout became increasingly more twisted and bewildering. It could be that instead of the building was keeping the ghosts away from her, Sally just kept building to keep herself isolated from the outside. Perhaps her construction efforts were motivated by a desire for solitude and privacy. She sought refuge from the prying eyes of society that was so curious about her unconventional lifestyle.
Nicole poses quite the opposite, like almost exact opposite theory, which you might be just about to drop on everyone, but maybe this is a really neat way to be remembered and talked about throughout history.
Very possible. Make your mark. And another theory is just it was about protection and security. And some people have proposed that the house was constructed to provide her with a sense of protection, right? She was alone. She didn't really live with anybody. She had a niece, her favorite niece, Daisy, came to live with her, but that was it. Her sisters eventually moved out to California with their families, but she bought them a house each and she supported them. So she was alone in this huge house with, of course, the construction that was going on 24/7. So she had construction workers and servants around, but maybe that was her way of filling the house. She had no family.
Yeah. I was thinking about that. I was also thinking about like, for somebody like maybe if you just want to be like people who build panic rooms or people who have like secret escapes, like, you know, if somebody ever gets in here and comes after me or any energy really, like I know my way around, but if it's your first time walking through, you don't.
And Todd also mentions, so I don't remember if I know I kind of mentioned this, but I didn't really. He mentions the staircase with 6 switchbacks to only go 8 feet. And they talked about this in a lot of things that I was reading. And Sarah also had arthritis. It ran in her family. And so they talk about the stairs are like really oddly spaced. They're not spaced right. And they're switchbacks. And they talk about that may have actually been a way for her to be able to get upstairs without having to climb up bigger stairs. Now, it could have been her experimenting with different heights and different ways to do it. But that's a thought on the switchback stairs, is that was her experimenting with ways to get around this huge house with arthritis. And she was tiny, yes, says Krista. She was actually under 5 feet. I think she was 4'10" or 4'11".
Did she have any slinkies, or was she a fan of slinkies?
Yes. That would be really, I bet you people do that.
Like, maybe she spent her days like trying to, like, it was a puzzle, like how to get the slinky down the 6 switchback stairs.
When you have, so she had something like, she would make about $27,000 a day. So she could literally do that if she wanted to. She's like, doesn't? I know, right? So she could be like, yeah, I'm gonna rebuild this staircase because I didn't do it right. Isn't that amazing? Like, wow.
My slinky only made it down 4 switchbacks.
Rebuild this.
Let's rebuild the other 2.
Knock it down. Yeah, I know. Chris was like, you're taller than she was. I know, it's weird.
I won't say anything.
So while these theories provide tantalizing glimpses into the mind of Sarah Winchester, the truth behind the construction remains elusive. The Winchester Mystery House, with its maze-like corridors and inexplicable features, continue to inspire wonder and intrigue, inviting us to explore the depths of its history and the many questions that still surround its creation. Sarah Winchester's obsession with the construction of the house is a mystery that she would ultimately take to her grave. As she tirelessly expanded and transformed her mansion, the true reasons behind her actions just remain locked within her heart. Even her closest associates, their family, like I said, her favorite niece, Daisy, her sisters, the people who worked there, were all left to speculate and ponder the driving force behind her construction frenzy. However, the unrelenting momentum of her building efforts were disrupted by a cataclysmic event. In 1906, the 7.9 magnitude San Francisco quake rocked the region, and Sarah found herself trapped inside the Daisy Room within the mansion.
That was probably like around this time of year.
Oh, I don't know. Somebody look it up.
I remember that earthquake being during the World Series.
No, 1906.
Oh.
I know.
Just kidding. My bad.
The other one I think was 89. That was I think a 7.1 or 7.
So sorry. I thought like she was still alive and she's waiting for us at the house. Just kidding. All right.
Yeah. So this was 1906, but we should find out the date because I didn't write it down the date. I just said in 1906. But yes. So in 1906, the 7.9 magnitude San Francisco earthquake rocked the region, and Sarah found herself trapped inside the Daisy Room within the mansion. It was truly chilling. Workers had to tirelessly work to free her from the room. They had to use a crowbar because the door was stuck, and the indentations on the door are still there. She made a decision at that time to end the full-time residence in the house. While her obsession with the construction waned in the aftermath of the earthquake, the mansion was never truly completed, and the peculiar architectural quirks continued to multiply, albeit at a slower pace. Sarah Winchester's life, however, was approaching its final chapter. She passed away in her sleep on September 5th, 1922, at the age of 83. In her death, a different facet of her character came to life. Prior to her passing, Miss Winchester had shown a compassionate and philanthropic side. She was known for her generous donations to various causes, including those related to health, education, and charities. She anonymously donated a great deal of money toward a tuberculosis research division of a local hospital in honor of her husband, William, who you might remember died of tuberculosis. So despite the riddles and mysteries surrounding her mansion, her philanthropic legacy was an enduring and positive testament to the woman who spent her lifetime shrouded in enigma. Sarah's life and her legendary house remain a captivating tale, a tapestry woven with secrets, questions, and a touch of the unexplainable. And since this is the Magical Mystery Hour, I think that we should explore some of the hauntings that people have repeatedly experienced in the house.
So it's open for tours.
Yes.
Do people live there or stay there still?
I don't know if anybody like actually lives there. There were originally like houses around, like on the property that for the workers, the construction workers, and I don't know if they still use that. I mean, it would make sense to have somebody on the property because it's so huge, like, right? There are always people there. I think security and all that, but I don't know if anybody lives there. It's a good question.
Todd says in the chat, nobody lives there. They just do tours.
Yeah.
So does Matt.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't know, but I think that there's always somebody on the property.
Right. But most of the stories are probably from visitors or caretakers.
Yes, exactly. There's a lot of stories that I've heard from the tour guides and things. They always go into Sarah's room. The last person in the house before they actually like lock it up has to say goodnight to Sarah. And so they go into her room and they say, okay, we're leaving. Good night, Sarah. And they say that occasionally they'll see her walking across the hall as they leave.
I was going to say, don't they know that she didn't survive the earthquake of 1998? Or wait.
I think it was 89.
89.
I think it was 89.
That's what I meant.
I'm pretty sure. I'm sure.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. But yeah, I know, right? Because that was a very big earthquake too. Yikes. But the house is fine.
No, I'm making a joke.
No, about the new one. Yeah.
How dumb I am. But
I thought you were being all cool and saying that her ghost was in the house during the earthquake.
No.
I was like making this really cool story out of it.
I was just saying, don't they know? Like, aren't they smarter than me? Like, she wasn't alive when the Giants were in the World Series. But that I love that, and the tradition of saying goodnight to somebody in the space where they would go to sleep every night. Like, I really love that. Yeah. So yeah, every night they do that, and like I said, they do occasionally say that they see her, and not like a full apparition like her shadow. Typically, they've also said that they've heard her sighing in the hallway just outside the room when they're doing tours. Once that it was even so obvious, like they heard sighing and footsteps, and they walked over. Thought that there was somebody there,
They're like, hey, come back in here for the tour. And then there was nobody there. So they do see Sarah. But somebody else who is very common, they call the mysterious handyman.
Ooh.
I know. I like that title. Many visitors and staff members have claimed to see the ghost of a man who appears to be a handyman or carpenter. The spirit is believed to be that of former employee Adam Coons. And they say that he continues work on the never-ending construction of the house, even in the afterlife. Adam Coons is a relatively obscure figure in history, and we basically only know him from the Winchester Mystery House. He's known to have worked at the mansion during the construction and renovation phases, but there's little to no documentation and information about his personal background, his life outside the house, and he's primarily recognized for his skills as a craftsman and carpenter. In his position, he played a significant role in executing the intricate and bewildering architectural designs of Sally Winchester. His craftsmanship was integral to bringing the house's unconventional designs to life, including the creation of those staircases that lead to nowhere and those switchback staircases that we talked about. Because he was so essential to the mansion's construction, it just makes sense that he would continue that in his next life.
I'm sorry if I missed it. Do we know how he died?
No. Now, the reason for that is after the construction of the house ended, so the legend goes that Sarah Winchester died and everything just stopped. They always say there's even half nails halfway in the walls. I don't know if that's true, but that's what they say. And he kind of just disappeared off the face of the earth. There's no traces of him in public records, no documented accounts. It's very strange. Like, where did he go?
Right.
Maybe he never left the house at all.
Right. And yeah, I mean, but that's the thing is like when people, I'm going to talk about spoiler alert. I'm going to talk about the Queen Mary a little bit. And so like some people say that people like the Queen Mary has gone through so much construction and renovation that people have died in the process, might still be trying to work on it. Right. And then, you know, if he died in a tragic accident while he was there in the house, or if his energy is just confused and he thinks he's supposed to be there doing work, maybe that's why. But if we don't know how or when he died, then it's all up to us to decide, I guess.
Yeah. Now, there's kind of some cool theories that I also like about him. And some claim that he's actually connected to Sarah on a spiritual level, and that his own spiritual beliefs influenced the ceaseless construction on the house.
Ooh.
Oh, I know. So there's no proof of this, but I was like, oh, so he, you know, again, the rumors are that he also, spiritualism was a big thing. Back then it was a very social kind of thing. In the early 1900s, seances were, you know, all the rage. But I had this idea and I was like, wouldn't it be interesting if he held seances with Sally Winchester, attempting to contact her deceased husband, thereby sealing his fate and actually binding him into the house?
Love that.
Me too.
I just love the saying, seances were all the rage.
I know. Seances, they were all the rage. And then like in the early 1900s.
Come have a seance.
It's true, though.
I love that.
Krista's got to go. Bye, Krista. You have to catch it later. So yeah, whatever the answers to all these questions are, he's a well-known and often seen figure in the house. Multiple reports of him. We also have the wheelbarrow ghost. The wheelbarrow ghost, nobody knows for sure. Could be the same person for all we know, or a different construction worker. But people say they see a spectral figure pushing a wheelbarrow as if carrying on construction work at the house. Right? And this, again, is linked to the thought that the construction never actually stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It will go on and on this plane or another.
Yeah. One of the most haunted locations is the ballroom. The haunted ballroom at the Winchester Mystery House, again, is one of the most famous locations within the whole mansion. And they say that that has the most paranormal activity. The ballroom is a grand and ornate chamber designed to be an elegant space for social gatherings, parties, and events. However, its reputation for being more than just a place for earthly entertainment. Visitors, staff, and paranormal enthusiasts have reported ghostly phenomena within, including hearing music and laughter when there are no visible sources. Some witnesses say they see dancing apparitions in period clothing, even feeling cold spots or sudden drops in temperature. It really kind of reminds me of the Haunted Mansion in Disneyland, and that's how I imagine like the ghost party is happening. Probably right now. Oh, you said something, but it didn't come through. Oh no, I don't hear you. What's happening?
What?
What? Okay, there you are.
I was saying I love it. I love and I put it in my movie, The Haunted Man. Like, if you're having a party and having a great time, I hope there's a stamp on that energy. I hope there's, and we can discuss in a little bit, but intelligent hauntings versus residual hauntings. Right. Like if something happened that created such an amazing energy that it's just replaying in the space and time, like that's what I want my party to be.
Yes.
Right?
The most epic party that it just goes on forever.
To haunt that room.
I love it. I want to be at that party.
Me too. Forever and ever.
Yes. So yeah, that's what I always think of. The ballroom's haunted reputation is associated with Sally Winchester's involvement in spiritualism again. And it's actually believed that she held the seances and communicated with the spirit world in the ballroom itself. So the connection between that and the reported activity in the ballroom adds to its ghostly legend. Was that your computer? So it wasn't mine.
What?
You didn't hear that? There was a little woo sound. I don't know what it was.
I didn't hear it.
Weird. Remember that time that on my show that there was like a random cash register sound and I have no idea where it came from?
Your computer got haunted.
It did. It was haunted one time. I have to go back.
You were talking about ghosts, right?
I don't remember what No, I don't think so. I don't know though. I was just in the middle of my show and then those sound effects started playing and I was like, I'm just sitting here. No windows were open. I looked through everything. It was very creepy. I know. I have to go back and watch that again.
I thought you were talking
okay, other people heard it too. Okay, so you just didn't hear it. But they're all like, yeah, I heard it. It sounded, like I said, it's like a little woo sound. And your picture on Zoom, I don't know if they could see it because it's not all the way, but your picture did a little at the same time. Oh, Craig said he heard it. Okay. So just Paul in here. Okay. But once again, none of us know what it is. It's Sally. Hi, Sally.
No.
Yeah, like all of the people in the chat are like, I heard it.
Great.
Creepy.
That's great.
I love it.
That's really great.
So yeah, let me find where I was in this podcast again. Yeah, I'll just skip that little exit. No, it's fine. I'll do it. To this day, the ballroom is preserved in the same state as it was when Sally Winchester was alive. This preservation is part of what contributes to the eerie and historically rich atmosphere of the house. While skeptics may dismiss the reports of the haunting, the tales of the haunted ballroom have become an integral part of the mansion's history and the legend of Mrs. Winchester herself. The next haunting is the crying baby. The legend of the crying baby at the Winchester Mystery House adds to all of the eerie atmosphere. I can't even, there's no more words I have to describe it. It's so strange. According to the story, visitors and staff at the house have reported hearing the sounds of a crying baby, even though there were no infants present. Sometimes it's just in the middle of their final rounds, right? When there's nobody left. It's just, checking through the house, making sure everything's locked, alarms are set. And that would give me the heebie-jeebies, and I'd probably run.
Yeah. I mean, babies alone will make me run.
Yeah.
Anymore. But, yeah, I mean, alone at night and they're not supposed to be up and crying? Sure. Yeah. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
No. Now, no one knows for sure the origin of the baby story, but some theories suggest that the crying baby could be related to the tragic loss of Sally's infant daughter, Annie. Now, I can't even imagine that heartbreaking loss. And again, coupled with the passing of her husband and other close family members, one could understand that it would have left a deep emotional imprint, not just on Sally, but on everything she put into the house. And I can't help but wonder if, as she reached into the spirit world for her husband, perhaps she inadvertently reached her infant daughter. This could have contributed to the reported paranormal activity. Visitors have described moments when they hear the unmistakable sound of a baby's cry coming from unseen sources. This ghostly crying is not limited to any specific area within the mansion, but has been reported in various rooms, hallways. It's unexplainable.
Oh.
Yeah. And then there's just a couple things that people say. Of course, there's doorknobs and locked doors, right? There have been reports of doorknobs turning on their own when somebody's in a room and they'll just hear the of the doorknob. Doors will lock or unlock without anybody doing it themselves. And some believe that this is right.
Both of those things are like terrifying.
Oh, God.
Like, can you imagine someone jiggling your doorknob and there's nobody there?
Mm-mm.
Like, hello?
No. No.
Holy buckets.
Yeah, that'd be terrifying. Okay, no. There's also whispering voices. So people claim to hear voices just whispering strange conversations, just kind of unintelligible. Right? Those things were like, what was that? And just, right? Like just fades away when you actually try to listen to it. Or, like you can hear that there's words being spoken, but I can't understand them. And then you try to find where it's coming from and it's gone. Yeah. Yikes. Of course, there are people who say that objects move on their own, right? There's also tales of things being rearranged when they, somebody will put something in one room one way, leave the room, come back, and it's changed back the way it was before. That's another one that they kind of attribute to Sally Winchester, saying that she's restless and, she's like, nope, this doesn't go here. That doesn't go there. I want it here. Stop moving my stuff. Of course, there are also orbs and unexplained lights. Oh, no. Did I miss something? Paul is dying. I don't know if I did something or if it's in the chat.
No, it's me. Have you seen The Others?
Oh, wait, yeah. Oh, love that movie.
Oh, such a great movie. And I won't spoil the twist, but
so
the whole idea of rearranging a room and then opening up the next day and it's completely back, like that kind of stuff is what my nightmares are made of.
That whole movie is yes, a nightmare to me.
Go watch it if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Great. Okay, so some visitors have captured photographs showing orbs and unexplained lights in the house. And these anomalies are often associated with paranormal activity. And there's even a video from the Winchester Mystery House. They put it up online, and I watched it because the person was like, what is this? And it is a little bit weird, but orbs are always something that, there's a lot of things that influence cameras and light. So it's really hard, to take any orbs seriously. But there's a camera that sits kind of over, there are all the security cameras that sits over the mansion. You can see several stories and rooms. And at the top of one, these two orbs come out of the building and then they sit for a second, and they're there. There's a red one and a blue one, and they sit, and then they go back inside. And it's really weird. And it's, like I said, I don't know enough about lights and camera to be like, yeah, that shouldn't happen. But a lot of times it happens like when the camera moves or there's a light moving around and it reflects. But this is a static cam, and there's nobody in the house moving around. You just see it. It is a little creepy.
I'm gonna have to look at that. One of my favorite things to do, and my mom will tell you this too, is to debunk orb videos and photos. So yeah, I'm excited to see that one.
Yeah, definitely watch it. Let me know what you think. I joined a paranormal group on Facebook to see, because I love like ghost stories, right? So I was like, let me see what people say. And it's so difficult because they'll put these videos up and they're like, look at this orb. And it's like, it's a moth. It's a literal moth flying around, or a piece of dust. Like there's a fan. You can see the fan over here in the picture, and there's a piece of dust doing that. And it's amazing to me in the comments that somebody goes, guys, that's dust. You can see it from the fan. And people are like, oh, you're just not sensitive enough to understand. You can't see what we can see. And I'm like, guys.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it's more important to say, no, I can debunk this, and define, things that you can't, rather than just say everything is something.
I wanted to believe there was something in here because early on in Vaudacity, people would be like, I saw an orb fly by Paul. And then I just realized, like, in this room, it was like Porthos fluff.
Yeah.
And it would just get stirred up from my movements in here. And as much as I want it to be an orb, like, I have to look at each one and be like,
Yeah, I know. So I do like to look at that one, but that one I was like, I have no idea what that would be. I don't know. I don't know what would cause a red and blue orb on a camera. I don't know why they would come out and move, sit, and then leave. So somebody watch it and let me know. Yeah. Anyways.
I'm going to check it out. I'm definitely going to check it out.
For sure.
For me, in my head, I'm like, there was obviously an ambulance driving by.
Yeah, I kind of had the same thought, or police car, but I don't know how that would work, because the house, I forget which part of the house that is. It's like 3 or 4 stories up, so it's not on ground level. It's real high. I don't know.
I'll take a look.
Yeah, definitely. Let me know. So as we're talking about, it's important to note that these stories, right, are part of the mansion's lore and legend, and obviously the authenticity of these ghost encounters is a subject of debate. Right? Some people have reported experiencing such phenomena, and others remain skeptical. But that's part of it, right? That's part of the draw. And that's why people are curious to visit, right? Normal people, paranormal investigators. That's part of the mystery and the fun of it. As we finish up our exploration. Go ahead.
Mystery, the fun is all in the mystery. And that's why we are all drawn to mysteries and drawn to magical mystery hours. Mm-hmm. So that's why we talk about it. And I'm sorry I talked over you.
Oh, no, you're fine. I don't mind.
And interrupted your closing.
No, you're fine. Listen, I always enjoy what it adds when we banter in the story. So. But as we finish up our exploration of the Winchester Mystery House, we're left with an enduring sense of mystery. The house itself stands as an architectural wonder, with its bewildering corridors, staircases to nowhere, and doors that open into walls or multiple story free falls. The stories that surround it are just as mysterious as the house itself, from the legend of the crying baby to the ghostly ballroom and the wheelbarrow ghost. But perhaps the greatest mystery of all lies within the heart and mind of Sarah Winchester. The reasons behind her endless construction, her fascination with the number 13, which I didn't even get into. She loved numerology. There's lots of ties to the Freemasons. We could go on and on and on. But she had some kind of connection to supernatural, and that remains tantalizingly elusive. Was she trying to appease spirits to hide from ghosts of those killed by the Winchester rifle? Or was it just her boundless grief and her seemingly endless supply of money that fueled her construction frenzy? Were the uneven staircases designed as a ghostly deterrence, or were they a practical solution for her arthritis? Did the number 13 hold a deeper mystical meaning, or was it just purely an aesthetic choice? Odd numbers look great in architectural design, and 13, holes in the drain look right compared to 14. Who knows? The truth is that we will probably never know. Sally Winchester, the widow of the firearms magnate, took her secrets to the grave. Even her loyal servants and construction workers refused to talk about the reasons behind the house's construction, even after her death. The Winchester Mystery House remains a testament to her eccentricity, creativity, and perhaps her own form of sanctuary. It's a place where history, architecture, superstition, the supernatural, they all converge, inviting us to wonder and speculate and explore the depths of its mystique. As I said earlier, grief is a terrible, terrible thing. I often find myself reaching into the void when I have quiet moments, wondering exactly what's out there. Where are those we lost? Could they somehow still exist? Could they maybe make contact with us if we just try hard enough? And sometimes I find myself hoping so, because it really does keep that grief in check. And then in that reflection, I suddenly understand Mrs. Winchester a little bit more than I did before. So as we leave this maze of history and legends, we're left with one undeniable fact. The perplexing legend of the Winchester Mystery House endures, and its secrets may, for all time, remain locked within its perplexing walls forever. A magical mystery.
Ladies and gentlemen, Amanda Benjamin.
Thank you.
All of her research and storytelling, an amazing, captivating tale.
Thank you.
Magical mystery Winchester House. Magical Winchester House.
Yes.
Magical, mysterious Winchester House.
It's fascinating.
You're so brilliant in your writing and your research. And I just marvel. I just marvel at the work that you do and the skill that you bring to the table.
Yeah, it's fun. I love it. It gives me an excuse to watch a bunch of YouTube videos and read a bunch of articles and look at orb videos.
Yes.
And try to put it together in something that makes sense. I always tell David too, I'm like, could you read, well, first of all, he'll read through to make sure. Cause when you write the script, you don't realize, I use this word 10 times in my script. Or, I could you look for those? Or and I'm always, it's so funny because I'm always I don't know. I think it's kind of boring. And then when you actually read it out loud, I think because when you write it, you're okay, I'm writing it.
I totally get what you mean. I totally understand that from a writer's perspective, but not boring at all. Super exciting. And
so I'm glad my point in saying that is I'm really glad you enjoy it.
Did. Absolutely. 100%.
Yay.
And we're going to enjoy the song you have prepared for tonight right after producer Craig comes on and tells us a little bit about what is coming up on the Vodacity Network. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for producer Craig Jackman.
Hello. Yes. For Halloween, of course, I have the background. But
hang on a second, Craig. 1 second, because Paul is pinned and it doesn't want to unpin him. Hang on. So we can't see you.
That sounds
there it is. It didn't want to remove your pin. Okay, hang on. I got to pin Craig now. There we go. That's the OBS.
There we go. Yes. And thank you so much, Paul and Amanda, for sharing that amazing story. Just to show people a little bit if I may take a moment. Here is the Winchester House. That's the front of the Winchester House.
Wow.
And look at this is
Holy buckets.
All of the Winchester House.
It is huge.
Overhead.
I haven't been there and I haven't seen pictures of it. I thought it was
wow,
just,
yeah. No.
Wow.
You thought it was just like that front part?
Huge.
That's why you get lost. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely looks like it's a maze. The only thing I can imagine is what would the blueprint of this look like?
Oh, it'd be amazing.
Yeah. So thank you both for sharing.
And thanks for sharing that.
Telling us about that amazing Winchester House. I've never been there myself. I would love to go, and now I really do want to go.
Group trip.
Let's do it.
Magical Mystery Hour live from the Winchester House?
Yes.
Right
I've
on.
actually had people who've been like, we'll go with our GoPros if you go. So just saying.
We'll
just have to give that a shot.
We're going to make a Vodacity family trip to Nashville, to the Winchester House, and to the Glen Tavern Inn. We'll talk about that.
Yes. Let's do it all.
Awesome. All right. Well, just so that we can get everything through and get started with our second part of our Magical Mystery Hour, I just want to say thank you very much to all of you who are watching. And if you'd so like to donate to our cast members, please feel free to do so on their Venmo tip jars. You don't have to, but if you would like to, we are just thankful that you are here with us listening to the Magical Mystery Hour. Yes, I wanted to do that. Why not? So thank you very much for joining us. And here are the Venmo tip jars for Amanda and Paul. Coming up on the Vodacity Network, well, tomorrow, the other podcast on our Vodacity Network, the Cove Podcast, the Carganilla Online Variety Entertainment Podcast, will debut its new episode with special guest actress, singer, songwriter, and dancer, Reese Warren. It's a really good interview, and it drops tonight at midnight. You can go to covepodcast.com to see where you can find it on your favorite podcast networks. It's all over the place. We'd love to have you join us and listen to a little bit about Reese Warren. Very, very good interview. You'll enjoy that. Coming up this week on the Vodacity Network as well, pardon me, tomorrow, Halloween, it's not going to stop the Piano Man. No. Classical piano and fresh puns as performed by David Benjamin tomorrow night starting at 8 p.m. Pacific right here on the Vodacity Network. David always has some great stuff to share and the music is awesome. And Amanda comes back this Wednesday with her Amanda on Demand show where Amanda Benjamin sings your requests live. Now, please go to amandaondemanda.com and click on the button that goes for requests. This week, her theme is songs that evoke memories. So, if you have a song that is of memory-like, please share it with us. Go to amandaondemanda.com, click on the wheel button, which is right there on the first page, and submit your song. It will be a very good show. Love watching Amanda when she does this. And of course, oops, I hit the wrong button. Let's go back to the Amanda slide, but we have one more to promote this week. Lovecast number 161 with Hunter Ackerman, live acoustic originals and covers. Hunter does this every Thursday starting at 8 p.m. It's a great hour or so of music that Hunter only can bring to the Vodacity Network, as well as just some of his nice daily thoughts that he shares with all of us. And it's a really nice conversation too. So please join us this Thursday, 8 p.m. for the Lovecast 161 with Hunter Ackerman. And that's what's coming up on the Vodacity Network. We are so glad that you have joined us tonight as we prepare for Halloween with an amazing Magical Mystery Hour. So,
and really quick, David said that his show is going to be on Friday since tomorrow is Halloween.
Okay.
And we don't want to be interrupted by trick-or-treaters.
Oh, I don't know. That organ could do a pretty good job at scaring kids as they walk up.
That is true.
That's Paul's fault for just scheduling shows during the week.
I also, I didn't.
I set Craig up for disaster right there. I'm sorry, Craig. It's all me.
Well, thank you, Paul. So, in honor of Halloween, I have to do at least one thing.
Do it. He's very good at that. Very good at that. Ladies and gentlemen.
Why, thank you so very much.
That's Craig Jackman.
Woo!
My applause doesn't work, so all I have are things like that.
I put in some applause.
Okay.
And Craig put in applause too. Everybody applause.
We're just having fun. What the heck, you know?
Why not?
It's not before Halloween.
Poor Craig is just like on the screen.
I know.
Well, at least I have my haunted mansion behind me.
It's true.
It's not the Winchester house.
I know.
But
I also can't tell if you started your video because I have Craig pinned. Yeah. Have you started your video?
I'm trying to help him out, but yeah. I'm here.
Let's remove this pin.
I think we are ready.
And
there's the three of us, or
at least
kind of half of us.
Yeah. Again, it's the joys of OBS. So I would need is a second camera.
Let's hear it for Craig Jackman.
Woo! Here we go. Woo! Yeah.
Craig does so much.
I know.
To make us look good that I'm always like, oh, Craig. I'm sorry. I'm here for you.
I know. I promise.
Help. I gave you the wrong information about David's show.
Oh no.
30 lashes with a wet noodle.
Yes.
Okay. Sounds delicious.
Yeah.
Well, as our ghost stories, our haunted locations continue, let's talk about what Amanda Benjamin was inspired to perform based on the theme.
Yeah. Well, it actually came to me as I was writing my script. Again, how I started and ended, talking about grief and what it does to us. And, it can drive you mad. It can lead you to a lot of things, and it just stays there. And that led me to a song that I love. It's beautiful, but very full of grief. And that is Evanescence, My Immortal. So, yeah, I'm going to give that a whirl.
Are you whirling it on a karaoke track, or what's happening?
I was going to because, oh, man, that track is amazing. But I decided I will try to play it more in my style. So, yeah, I'm going to play my guitar. You won't, unfortunately, just due to camera angles and how many times I would have to change things, you won't be able to see the guitar. But it's there, just so you know.
Love that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here's Amanda Benjamin performing a cover of Evanescence, My Immortal, on her guitar.
All right. Yeah, let's do it. I love this song. It is gorgeous. And I was reading about it also because I was like, well, what did she write this song about? And because a lot of people think it's, like a lost loved one. It's a lost relationship. And she said it was actually about a friendship. She said in those friendships that just one day, you're as close as you can be. And then the next, you're not. And you don't even really know why. And so it was a really interesting thing. And like I said, so it's talking about grief. And I was find it fascinating. So, yeah, like I said, let's do it. So this is Evanescence, My Immortal. I'm so tired of being here presence still lingers here, and it won't leave me alone. These wounds won't seem to heal. This pain is just too real. There's just too much that time cannot erase. You cried, I'd wipe away all of your tears. You'd scream, I'd fight away all of your fears. I've held your hand through all of these years, but you still have all of me. By your resonating light, but now I'm bound by the life you left behind. Your face, it haunts my once pleasant dreams. Your voice, it chased away all the sanity in me. These wounds won't seem to heal. This pain is just too real. There's just too much that time cannot erase. You cried, I'd wipe away all of your tears. You'd scream, I'd fight away all of your fears. I've held your hand through all of these years, but you still have all of me. I've tried so hard to tell myself that you're gone, and though you're still with me, I've been alone all along. You cried, I'd wipe away all of your tears. You'd scream, I'd fight away all of your fears. I've held your hand through all of these years, but you still have all of me.
Throwing shoes. Love that. More than the original.
you.
I agree.
Aw.
with people in the chat. I love the laid back version. I love your voice on it and the guitar, the electric. That was fantastic.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I love that song. It just works so well on that little finger picking because it has that pattern in the original. That's really cool. So.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Amanda Benjamin,
Thanks.
my immortal, Evanescence,
Love it.
live. Doing it live.
Doing it live.
And now it's her favorite part of the night. She
It
just
is.
gets to relax.
I just get to sit back and do, just get to listen. It's great. Do my thing.
Yes. Well, here we go. I know we're like an hour away from Halloween and people have to get to bed. So I've got like a buckshot of haunted locations
Yes.
a bunch of different locations, just 4 actually, but a lot of stories I'm going to try and get through. I'm not going to try and get through. I'm going to highlight and present
yes,
freaking way. Starting with my grandparents' home, in which my grandmother, Barbara Starkey, lives with her husband, Robert Nyborg, today.
Wait, you're a Starkey?
Well, yeah. So,
like Richard Starkey?
Like,
you're like, who's Richard Starkey?
Ringo Starr?
Yes.
Ringo Starr? Yeah, I've said it so
Wait,
many times.
I don't remember this.
Yeah, no. So my grandfather's cousin was Ringo Starr.
Oh, this is starting to ring a bell.
Yeah. So my grandfather, Frank Starkey, he's my mother's father. Passed away about a year before Everly was born. Mm-hmm. He lived in this house with my grandmother, Barbara Starkey, and it's in a city called King City, California. It's like 45 minutes north of Paso Robles up the 101. Mm-hmm. And here's Noah just last summer standing in front of the house that is historical because John Steinbeck's uncle built it.
Oh,
it's out there, and I believe he wrote most of East of Eden in this house. John did. His uncle's house here in King City, California. And while I was growing, like they got it's a small town. They got their first traffic light, I think like 20 years ago when I was 22 years old. Or something like that. But every time we went up to visit, they had lived in, when I was growing up, my grandparents lived in Escondido, California. And then they moved up to be closer to my aunt, my mom's sister, who lived in King City. They are the Lopez family of King City. They own the South Valley Auto Plaza up there. But my grandparents moved up there to be closer to them because they've got 4 kids in that family and grandkids now and great grandkids now. But they ended up buying one of the oldest homes they could find in the city and turning it into a bed and breakfast. And for over a decade, it was a working bed and breakfast called the Carriage House Inn in King City, California. And
I think I've heard of this.
Yeah, well, I've talked about it a lot on the network, I think. My grandmother would cook breakfast every morning for the guests. There were 2 guest rooms, a smaller one in the very front of the house, and then a bigger one in the heart of the house, and then my grandparents lived in the back.
Okay.
It's called the Carriage House because the original house for the horses was still is still today in the backyard. Mm-hmm. It's no longer a bed and breakfast. My grandparents need some rest, but the original Carriage House is still back out there in the backyard, built in the early 1900s, and so we have a lot of family stories of things that happened in that home, that haunted location, as they purchased it and they started to make it a bed and breakfast. The first of which is there were builders in there. They didn't make huge changes or upgrades. They just like patched up some things here and there. Mm-hmm. But before they moved in, some construction workers, some handymen that were fixing some things were telling my grandparents, Frank and Barb, hey, guess what? Like, one of my boots is gone. Like, one of my shoes is gone. I took off my shoes to put on some boots, and I can't find it anymore. Or, in some instances, my toolbox moved. We went to lunch, and I came back, and it was in a different room against the wall. Have you been letting people in here? And my grandparents were like, no, you guys are the dudes, so I don't know why your toolbox may have moved. But my grandfather, Frank Starkey, was a Lutheran minister And so, of course, all of the positive energy, all of the love and prayers that could be said throughout the house always were. And the positive energy was always there. It never felt bad or evil, malevolent. But it felt like there was definitely an energy inside that was either messing with the people who were working on the house, or just saying, hey, I'm here.
Right.
And it happens to Jamie all the time, especially with her phone charger, her computer charger, her clicker for the garage door. She can never find them. So I'm convinced our house is haunted.
So I always say that it's like something is messing with me. I swear to God. It's like what happens is, and this happens all the time, not just at home, but what happens is I lose something, right? And I cannot find it. I will search everywhere I can think of. Like, first thing, like my keys, they gotta be in my bag. I put them right here. They gotta be in my bag. I put them right here. I'm like emptying out the bag. Can't find it. Go through all the other locations in my house. And what I do is I go, David, I can't find my keys. And he's like, are they in your bag? And I'm like, no, I emptied out my bag. It's not there. And then he goes and looks in the bag, and they're right there. I'm like, but and this happens to me all the time. It's always like the second that I ask for help, it's like, oh, there it is. It's like something is out there trying to make me look bad.
Yeah. That's the thing. You and Jamie are both haunted.
It is that's obviously the only explanation.
Or your house and my house are both haunted. She could never find her phone charger, especially her computer charger. That's the biggest one. Is her laptop charger is like the ghost is always moving it.
When I was in a show, we actually did that because that was the thing. My thing was, where are my keys? So we made this video, and it was really funny, but I couldn't stop laughing because it was so funny the whole time. We did this video, and it was just jump cuts of me like being like, where are my keys? And I'm like looking in all these places, and it like cuts to me inside a cabinet. Like, where are my keys? It's great.
Yeah. Well,
someday
it's
I'll have to
definitely
find
a ghost. It has to be.
It is.
It's the only explanation.
Only explanation.
But this Steinbeck house ghost ended up being very helpful. And my grandparents would note that anytime that there was a reporting or an experience, it was being helpful after messing with the whoever was, helping them restore the house to make it a bed and breakfast. The ghost started to, my grandmother noticed it would open doors for her.
Oh.
As it would see her moving through the house. I don't know if it's like an old fashioned thing, but like, so there's the house, and then there's like a sitting room, and then there's a kitchen in the back bedroom. There's just a lot of doors.
Right.
I feel like my house doesn't have as many doors.
I know. Yeah, definitely. Like the rooms used to be much more separated. Now we like these
separated
open.
And glass paned with frames. But as my grandmother would move through the house, like doors would open for her as she would come through, and she would say thank you. And with love and appreciation, of course. One particular instance, she was home alone, and she was in their bedroom. She was putting on an outfit for the day, and there was a mirror on the back of their bedroom door, and she was kind of like, I don't know, pulling on her pantsuit or whatever and trying to lean over and see it, and the door kind of closed itself to an angle that showed her like exactly what she needed to see, and stopped right there. And she was just like, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. There were several times where my grandparents were out of town, and neighbors would tell them, wow, you guys had a crazy party last night, right?
Oh no.
And they'd be like, what? Lights. They would tell them the lights were on. We could hear the conversations. We could hear the music.
Oh, boy.
And my grandparents would be like, no, we were not home. And
Squatters.
What was that?
I said squatters.
No, but it was all to like it. Yeah. My grandparents just thought like they're keeping the house safe.
Right. So yeah, because if people think that people are home, they won't be coming in.
Like Home Alone.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like the Christmas party. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Home Alone ghosts. That's amazing.
Ooh.
That's a good movie, right? We're gonna have to make that Home Alone Ghost Edition.
Alone. Yes. Ghost Alone. We're developing it here.
Yes. Again, trademarked.
Timestamped and trademarked. My grandparents, obviously, it was a bed and breakfast, so they would have guests sign the guest book.
Yeah.
Talk about their experience. Many of them said, love the energy here, loved my visit last night, and would just leave that in the guest book. Some of them would come out in the morning and just talk to my grandmother about the visits they had throughout the night. One that I remember in particular was a lady came out and was having breakfast with my grandmother, and she said, so they had two rooms. The smaller one up front, I forget the name of it, but the bigger one was called the Namuro room because it was named after a doctor that would come and spend most of his time there. But they said they were sleeping in the night and they were woken up by a white energy that came in through one window, walked across the room, looked at her, and then got up and went out the next window. And she was completely fine with it. She was totally comfortable, and she just told my grandmother, I was visited by a spirit in white passing through.
No big deal. Just a spirit in white. No big deal.
My grandma was like, okay, cool.
Everybody thought it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
Sure.
And she wouldn't press people when they would come out and have breakfast with her and they would say they had an experience. She wouldn't be like, so tell me about it.
I would be the worst. I'd be like, tell me every detail.
Oh, me too. And that transitions perfectly into me. Like me, I'm the one who's like, I want a ghost experience. I want to see something. I want to experience something. Like, give me like a full body premonition. I want to sit down and talk to a ghost.
And you've been in the house and nothing has happened to you?
I've stayed there so many times, and this is like one of my theories is like, if you want something to happen, if you like these tourists that go into haunted locations like the Winchester House, if you're going there hoping for an experience, you're probably not going to have one. It just I don't know.
And it's funny because it's also the opposite. If you go there like with a totally closed mind, a lot of times nothing happens. It's like but it's hard to be neutral, right? And just be like, I'm just gonna go here and see what you always kind of hope one way or the other.
So I will say, one experience that I had there, and I was in the front room, and it was a smaller room. So if you're laying in bed, looking straight ahead, there's a door to your right that goes into basically the foyer of the house, and if you made another right, you'd be going out the front door.
Okay.
Because behind your head is the window out front. And then there's another door to a small bathroom that doesn't go anywhere else. It's just like a toilet and a bath shower combo. And so I'm sleeping in there. I'm all by myself. One night, I have this very, very vivid dream. And this, I want to have a ghost experience. I'm super sensitive to any sounds or lights or anything going on. So I'm having this dream and I'm thinking, is it a dream or is it not? I'm hearing like a mumbling and a grumbling in the bathroom. And I'm half terrified, half super excited to experience something.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It sounds like somebody's cleaning up in there and just talking to themselves. And finally, I'm sitting there for like what feels like forever.
Right.
Finally, the door opens, and there's what I can just describe as like literally the caricature of like an old like hobo from the cartoons. Like he literally had like a stick with a sack on it.
Whoa.
Like bandana sack on it, overalls, like almost eye makeup, and like he was a stage performer being like a hobo.
Interesting.
Comes out of the room and just kind of mumbles and grumbles at me for a minute, and then goes out and exits. And it was so cartoonish that I knew like it didn't happen. But it felt so real that to this day, like I feel like that was the closest experience I've ever had to interacting with an otherworldly energy.
Right.
Like this dream that I had made such an impression on me that I'm like, if somebody sat me down and said, tell me one experience that you've had with a ghost, like that is the one that I have. And it's silly and dumb and like it could have been a total dream, but it felt very vivid and real and made a mark on me.
When I've had like those kind of ghost dreams, they're very different. Like you just know, you're like, this is wrong. Like,
right.
You're like, no, this is not like I don't know. Like all of a sudden you're just like, whoa, it's like you're conscious. And you're like, wait, cause like I'm never like everybody talks about lucid dreaming, right? You can control it, you can talk, and I'm like, I can't do that. There are times that I realize that things are wrong, but I can't control it after that. But like if I have a dream and I feel like something's paranormal, it's like all of a sudden, like it's like the dream kept going and I didn't. And then I'm like, wait. And then like whatever is in front of me is different and they don't look right. And I'm like, that's not a person.
Right.
And so you just know that things are wrong. And so, if that's what you feel, then.
Well, one thing that happened since then was after my grandfather had his stroke and was paralyzed, that room that I was sleeping in became like his hospice room. And a lot of us came in and sat down with him the way that you described with your grandfather. And he was at home in his house, but just a shell of himself. And a lot of us were coming and going. And I don't know because this was years before that happened, but I don't know if it was just like some supernatural or crazy, amazing, miraculous way of just like, I don't know, some sort of message being, portrayed from the other side, being like, not that we're all hobos, but if we're travelers on a journey.
Right. And maybe that's what your brain, thought of as like a.
And I was laying exactly where he was when he passed.
Oh, wow.
So like, while that whole experience was very vivid and dramatic for me at the time and didn't make sense for many years later, like, I don't know, maybe that is just something that passes through that I think about. And it's just like, maybe it was just a higher power way of saying, we're all on a journey and let's just explore it and not be afraid of it. And I don't know.
I know. And that's the cool part, I think. And I know some people are like, no, that's the worst part. I'm like, no, that's the cool part, is that we can't know. And it's up to us to say what it is, and I'm like, that is the best part is that we get to decide. I wish we could know for sure. Don't get me wrong. But I think that's cool.
Faith has so much to do with it, and what you believe in, and what you're experienced, and what you're shown, and how you respond to it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the Carriage House Inn in King City, California was my first haunted.
Yes. I want to go there now.
Location.
I want to
go. Another Vodacity party.
Yes,
party at the Carriage House Inn. All right. So earlier we talked about The Haunted Man, which is my film that's out on YouTube now. You can check it out. But if I ever get to make a sequel, it will be on the Queen Mary in Long Beach, California.
Yes. The coolest. I love it.
I start my music, and my music is nowhere to be heard.
I love it.
I'm doing all of the things wrong.
It's because my tech went relatively smoothly, so somebody's got to do it.
All the ghosts in the machine. There it is. So, let's talk about the history of the Queen Mary. As documented, the Queen Mary is a retired British ocean liner, according to Wikipedia. It sailed primarily on the North Atlantic Ocean from 1936 to 67, so 31 years it lived. For the Cunard White Star Line, the same what is the name of it? The same Freightliner? Passenger liner. Wait, I should know this. The same company.
Okay.
That brought you the Titanic, brought you the Queen Mary 20 years later, and it was twice as big as the Titanic, and just made this transatlantic journey so many times from Southampton and Cherbourg to New York. Mm-hmm. It sailed its maiden voyage in May of 1936, and as I mentioned, was finally retired in 67. It had a long life. During World War II, it was actually repainted all gray because it was put in camouflage and would move troops back and forth. It was a troop ship for Allied soldiers during World War II. And it continued. It was luxurious. It was successful, and a lot of people died on it and because of it, but that's for later discussion. But finally, in 1967, it made its final trip across the Atlantic to Long Beach, California, where it has since been docked and gone through so many legal and financial battles, but is now still today open as a hotel and museum for luxury cruise liners throughout history. And it has, based on who you listen to and who talks about it, maybe it's either been wrecked by ghost stories or saved by ghost stories. Yeah. We'll talk about some ghost stories. Have you ever been there, Amanda?
Yeah, I love it. And there was definitely one area that gave me pause.
What?
Like, whoa. So there is, because you've been on it, right?
I have.
Okay, good. Just making sure. So we were walking around. It was after a Christmas party that was on the ship. And so we were walking around. It was late. It was dark, and there weren't that many people left on there. And there is this, I believe it was the staircase as it goes into the infirmary. And I literally stood on the top of it and went, whoa. Like, I stopped. And I was like, I can't. Like, I did. But I had, like, this moment of, like, I couldn't explain it. I just had to stop. I was like, oh, okay.
Was that the place where people went to die? The infirmary?
Yeah, like it could be. It was a sick, like sick bay.
I
Like
forget the words. Like there's a term
not
for
like
it.
the morgue. Or no, I don't know.
No, it wasn't the morgue. It was like solitary.
Oh, like a quarantine area or
somebody in.
I mean, it's all there. I think they were all close to each other. So I mean, it was like kind of like the general entrance as you're going toward all the medical stuff. But it was just kind of scary. That's the closest. I wasn't afraid, but like maybe imposing. It's a hard thing to put down that emotion. But like I said, I stopped and I was like, I don't know why I feel this way, but. And then we went and it was fine. Like nothing happened. I didn't even know where we were going because we were just like, let's walk around the ship. Yeah. And we're like, what's down here? And it was like, ooh. And then we walked in and I was like, oh, it's like the infirmary. It's where sick people are going. And I don't remember for sure if it's the same because there's also a corridor, which I'm sure. Are you going to talk about that corridor with the door?
Hatch 13.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember if that's in the same. I'll find out if it's the same thing. I can't remember what it's called, but probably. And I can't remember if they're in the same area or not because I remember reading about that and being like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, but that's where I was. That gave me an absolute.
Well, I don't know if it was my love of Titanic or. I remember my parents took me there and we took like the tour before ghost tours were there. Yeah. We took a tour and even like the tour guide then would talk about ghosts before it was a ghost tour.
Right.
But I got to go back when Dan Franklin released his album, The Best Ride of Your Life. He had the debut performance and CD release album party in the grand ballroom. That's on fancy. The Queen Mary. And he invited me to open his show and that was my stand-up comedy debut there on the ship. And I spent the night there and that was the last time I was there, but my earlier memories were just touring it as a kid. I went to a buddy's wedding. He got married on the Queen Mary. Okay. But as a Titanic fan and a fan of ghost stories, it always stuck with me. And as anybody knows who has seen my movie, The Haunted Man, if we make a sequel, it's going to take place on the Queen Mary. And so I get to explore both the Queen Mary and the Glen Tavern Inn where The Haunted Man was filmed for the rest of my stories on this episode. But
I'm just saying that I very much want to be in that movie.
You're in. You yes. Just got cast.
Yes.
You are cast.
I don't know what I'm cast as, but I'm in.
Yes, you're in it. And here we go. So diving into stories on the Queen Mary. I just talked about its past for a little bit, but you could do a deep dive on YouTube or in podcast land of Queen Mary ghost stories, and you could spend a week there. But in the archives in the cargo area, there's a young girl named Dana who is said to haunt the area with she can sometimes be seen carrying her stuffed animal around and sucking her thumb. She is actually one of the victims of a horrible murder that we will talk about later on, but she's one of the kids that walks the hallways there. In the Queen's Salon, there's the lady in white who is often seen walking the hallways like you see right there. That is a shot of what the hallways look like now, today. Back in the day, there were linoleum on the floors. But so it's easier for footsteps to echo through the halls in the annals of memory and history. But the lady in white has been seen walking through the hallways, but mostly in the Queen's Salon, she's seen dancing. And as we talked about, the residual hauntings and even when nobody hears music, they can see a lady in an elegant white 1930s dress dancing around. She's also seen in the lobby. She's the one that is the most seen by people on tours. And I don't know, maybe it's a power of suggestion and tour guides always mention her, so people will just see her.
Maybe.
But the lady in white on the Queen Mary is the one that is the most seen by the most people. And they say that she looms ever present at the end of the lounge and its surrounding corridors. And the lounge is the big ballroom, I believe, where I performed my first stand-up comedy set, I must say.
So cool.
The big ballroom. And not malicious at all, but very well reported. She is the one that most people see. Next, I'll talk about the first class swimming pool. This is another hot spot. And doesn't it just look creepy AF? Photo that Craig is sharing if you're watching on YouTube. This is like an older photo, and now today, like, they haven't like done a whole lot of changes to it. Like they'll restore it and everything, but a lot of the ghost stories come from this area.
Oh, interesting.
It looks like an Egyptian tomb or temple.
Yeah, I know, it's very stone. Like I can't tell if I think they're tiles, but like in this picture it looks very stony.
Yeah, and I think if you look out to your left, there's another like patio deck that goes out to the ocean, so it's not as dark and gloomy as it looks.
Right, unless it's nighttime.
Right. Countless ghost stories have come from this area, and this is where I remember when I was on the tour as a kid, the tour guide said he has seen people walking through and seen wet footsteps come through. But as far as hauntings that stick, there is a ghost that has been named Little Jackie. She's a 5 or 6 year old girl reported to walk around through the room there.
Oh, and that is the creepiest picture.
This is a photo that is reported to be her peeking over at tourists from the top of one of the staircases there.
So they claim that's a ghost picture.
They claim that is Little Jackie. She's very well known. They brought like a psychic on to be on national television at one point, and this was like 20 years ago. And they were walking through one of the salons, one of the ballrooms, and he said, "Oh, hey, I just met a little girl here. Her name is Jackie." And Jackie's telling me, let's go talk in the other pool. But they were in like a salon at the time. And he didn't know there was 2 pools on the Queen Mary originally. And this particular room was the first one. And the other one was the other one that she was talking about. So he went in there and they had like a 20-minute conversation on TV. Obviously, the television cameras and microphones only picked up his side of it. But Jackie is a very well-known figure on the Queen Mary as far as ghosts and haunts go. But as far as that swimming pool area, like countless stories. There's the lady in the 1930s swimsuit that's seen and reported many times. And there's a gentleman, I'm going to mention him a couple of times tonight. I forget his first name right now, but his last name is Sauter. Oh, Bill Sauter has gone on record on YouTube, and he used to guide tours on the Queen Mary, and he recounts a time when he was waiting for a tour group to come through. It was early in the morning. No, it wasn't a group, but a young lady came in about 20 years old. and started to walk up the stairs toward him. And he was watching her as she was looking down at the pool. She had blonde hair. She looked like she was dressed for this, like, Woodstock, he says.
Oh.
In a bright orange dress. And as she was coming up, he was about to ask her, if she had any questions about the room. And she passed a pillar, and she never passed the pillar, but as she went behind the pillar, she disappeared. And he kind of went, wow, that's weird, and went around and looked around and saw that there's no way she could have gotten out if she started to walk up those stairs. But the whole point is that this pool room, while it looks creepy AF, make no mistake about it, it is creepy AF.
That picture of little Jackie is getting me. I'm like, ooh.
And the whole thing about, like, any of these Queen Mary ghost stories, like, they're so well known and so well documented that if anybody wants to dig further into them, you certainly may, because there is a wealth of them out there. One of my favorite stories from the Queen Mary is from the Mauritania room, and I'm going to read this verbatim from travelandleisure.com.
Okay.
They say, in 1989, 2 women were sent to clean this lounge for a VIP reception. When they entered the room, they found a guest sitting silently on a chair in the middle of the dance floor. When a third woman came in to help with the cleaning, she remarked that the guest was staring at her, and she asked him to move. As the employees started to call security, the guest faded into thin air right in front of them. A feat all 3 women reported seeing at the same time.
See, those kind of stories get to me. When there's multiple people.
Goosebumps.
Ghost bumps. They're ghost bumps.
They're ghost bumps. Yeah, and we've talked about that countless times on Magical Mystery Hour.
So when it's one person, you're like, but when there's 3,
ooh,
I don't know. That gets a little creepy.
Everybody watched it happen. Everyone in the room, every living soul in the room watched it happen at the same time.
I know. That gives me pause.
Pause and bumps. All right, so there's the Mayfair room. This was the ship's beauty salon, and it's now used as an office space for employees. In 2001, a member of the accounting staff came in early to work. This was before her shift, and she felt like something in the room was off. She didn't bother to, I don't know what you do. Like, what do you do when you walk into a room and you're like, something's off? I don't know. But she went about her tasks, and then she sat down at her desk and later felt someone walk in behind her and brush up against her. She was like, excuse me. Yeah. And no one was there.
No one's there. That happened to me at school recently. Actually.
Did it really?
Yeah, twice recently. One was in my classroom. It was in the middle of class. And like kids, they always do weird things. Like they grab on, they grab onto you. They try and touch you, and so we were all doing, I forgot what they were doing, if we were doing a dance or something. And I turned around and looked at my computer, and I was wearing a sweater, and I just felt somebody, like it was on the back of me, but I felt something do this, like pretty hard. And I was like, hey, like, don't grab my shirt. And all the kids were like on the other side of the room. And I was like, what? Like there's nobody by me. They're all like doing their thing on the other side of the room. It wasn't even like, because I turned around right away as they were tugging, and there's nothing there. And then another time I was in the auditorium, which is our big theater, is really big. And the same thing, I felt something like pulling at the back of me, and I was like, I'm the only one here. It's like, ooh. Yeah, it's weird.
Well, mischievous kids.
I know.
I got a couple more Queen Mary stories. So one is about the watertight doors and Hatch 13, which is the one I think you're thinking about.
Yes.
So down in the engine room, or toward the engine room, there are a series of watertight doors in case something happens and, God forbid, you have to seal off watertight compartments so the whole ship doesn't go down in the North Atlantic. Oh, Titanic. So in 1966, they were crossing the Atlantic, and they would do drills every once in a while because they learned, the Cunard Star Line learned from the sinking of the Titanic, and they would do drills of the watertight doors closing. And from what I understand, from what I read, an alarm would sound for 60 seconds before the drill started. And then the drill would take another 60 seconds for the door to close. So you had a good amount of time. And what most people who were there figure was this particular crew member was playing a game that crew members would play because they were so bored. Was it takes 60 seconds for the watertight door to close. How many times can I get back and forth and still survive? And one particular crew member by the name of John Petter got caught and crushed in hatch door number 13. He got crushed from like this, from the top of his shoulder to his midsection. His buddies came, tried to help him, radioed up to the bridge. The medics on board came, tried it, like they shot him with morphine and they put him in the fridge, like where all the food was, till they got back to the mainland, and he was pronounced as deceased. But he is one of the most famous ghosts to still haunt that area on the Queen Mary, down in the engine room by hatch 13. There are stories of people who are taking the tour. As they walk through that door, they feel like they're brushing up against somebody, or someone is standing in front of them, and once they get past, they find that there's random unexplained grease marks on their clothes or their face. And Mr. John Petter is one of the most well-known ghosts on the Queen Mary today.
I don't know if you guys all know, probably because you guys are like watching, but the second that picture came up, I was like, I'm out. I'm out. I don't know what it is about that story. It gets me every time. I'm like, oh God. Like, I said, just seeing that hallway, I was like, oh, no.
Yeah, and that was one of the first ghost stories I ever heard. I remember as a kid, like the one of like, so people who take the tour and people on the ship see a guy in coveralls with a beard that matches his description, just following them and then just disappear. Often he's the one who most often is like seen. I think he and the lady in the white dress are the ones you're gonna hear about the most.
Yeah. So far, if there's one that I'm like, oh yeah, that's the one. Because like I said, just seeing the pictures, like seeing little Jackie, that picture, I was like, oh, that's creepy. But like I said, the second that picture was up, like my chest filled. I was like, oh God. Like, I don't know what it is about that. And it's that same feeling I got going in through that at the top of that staircase. I was like, oh no. Don't like it. Don't like that feeling.
Well, I mean,
so maybe
you gotta know what you're feeling and be self-aware. Let's start before I move on to my last story of the Queen Mary. Okay. I'm going to just chat for a second about the most haunted room that everybody always talks about, and that is the stateroom B340. This is a room that apparently has really super horrible energy. So the picture that you're seeing right now, these are photos from the room. So the room was closed for 20 years to guests, and recently opened back up because of how popular like ghost hunting is now, and people want to stay in the room. But like, look at this room. Do you want to stay in it?
No. I mean,
Fine.
Let's be real. That is part of the bad energy. Let's look at that room.
So if you're standing there and you turn around and look to the closet in the bathroom, it's going to look like this.
Ugh.
The bathroom's on the left and the closet is on the right. And then there's a bigger room off to, if we spun around again and kind of looked to our right, you can see where the people are talking to somebody. Mm-hmm. That's where the bed is now for anybody who's going to be staying in that room. So if you want to go to the Queen Mary and stay in this room, your bed will be where all the people are standing. In the room where this awkward table and mini bed are, there's a couch and some like a coffee table, and then they've like fixed up the bathroom and stuff. So this is room B340, and I saved it for last because nobody knows exactly why there's bad energy in there. If I were to guess, I would say because feng shui, like this, it just feels like a horrible corner of existence. Right.
Like, I mean, that's what I mean. Could you fix it up a little bit and then see if it has really bad energy?
Yeah. So I don't think I put one in the Google Drive for producer Craig to share, but they have fixed it up now.
Oh, okay.
After 20 years of nobody being able to stay in there, now you can stay in there, and they will give you a Ouija board, and they will give you all kinds of different ways to connect with the darker energy, because the Queen Mary is trying to use it for money now. I mean, but it's all fixed up. Like, there's wood panels on the walls. It looks a lot nicer. There's carpet. Right. But if you want to go on YouTube and check it out, you can stay in this room. The stories behind this room are that, I mean, the lore is that there was a man who was on the Queen Mary that murdered 2 women, and as it was a transatlantic voyage, the security on board needed somewhere to put him, so they put him in this room, and they were guarding the door. And as they were guarding the door, he was screaming for his life, saying someone was in there attacking him, and they wouldn't open the door because they thought he was just trying to escape. And then once they docked and police officers came in, they found him murdered in a way that he couldn't have done to himself. And that is what happened in that room. But like, there's no historical evidence to back that up. And a lot of people think that for a time Disney owned the Queen Mary.
Right.
And they think that Disney kind of made up the story. This is how it looks now.
Hey, that's great.
It's a lot better.
Yeah.
And they'll give you this box full of Ouija boards and crystal balls.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
And candles, so cool. And whatever you need to evoke the spirits that you want to haunt you throughout the night.
Bring them to me.
You will find, if you go on YouTube, like, so many people who are like, it was the scariest night of my life because I stayed in that room and I tried to use the Ouija board. But that is room B340. It is like highly regarded as one of the most haunted spaces in the world, and nobody exactly knows why.
That's interesting. Okay.
Other than Disney.
Yeah.
Maybe trying to make some money. Who knows? But that is the Queen Mary. I had one more thing I wanted to mention, and that is it's kind of a teaser for our next episode on time slips. Yes. There's a guy, I've mentioned him already. He worked there as a tour guide. Gosh, now I can't even remember. Bill Sauter. And you can, I'll put a link to, there's a YouTube episode where he's talking about his experiences as a tour guide. But he talks about a moment where he was standing on the bow of the ship and waiting for the next tour group to come through. And in just an instance, he describes it as a clap in time. He found himself standing exactly where he was waiting for the tour group, but it was 1967. They were docked in New York. There was snow on the deck. There was a feeling of dread and sadness because the ship knew that it was about to make its last crossing to Long Beach, and then everybody would be out of a job. Mm-hmm. And he could see the New York skyline, and he wasn't just there on the bow. He also had a memory of being up in the room where somebody was looking at the plans for their voyage, and they were looking at the route which they would take across the ocean. He also remembered being in the kitchen as someone was preparing a meal for the upcoming journey. Mm-hmm. He also remembered being in a stateroom for somebody who was making a bed for the journey. He had this clap of consciousness that just tapped into all those years ago, and he felt all of those feelings, and he knew all of the details, and he lived them in a moment, and he will never forget it. And he talks about it on YouTube. I'll put the link.
Yeah, you should.
But this, I only thought to bring it up and mention it again because Dan Franklin has this a very similar experience that he tells about his album release party for The Best Ride of Your Life, being on the Queen Mary, and he had a very interesting elevator journey. Mm-hmm. Where he went to a floor and the floor opened up and it was like a time slip, and he stepped back in and went back into his room. And maybe we can talk to him about that.
That's what I was thinking. Maybe he could come on the next show, and I mean, he could even just video himself telling the story. I would love that.
But he has a very interesting. That weekend I had the pleasure of making my stand-up comedy debut in the big ballroom.
Oh, was that same weekend? That's right.
Yeah, on the Queen Mary. But I walked the floors and the hallways and tried to have an experience. But that's like my whole thing. Is like, if you're trying to have an experience, I don't think you can.
I know, I'm trying too hard.
Maybe you can't. I don't know. But that's the Queen Mary in Long Beach, California.
Yes, that was amazing.
Do you have time for one more?
Yeah, who doesn't? It's not Halloween yet.
12 more minutes to Halloween. Let's squeeze it all in.
We can do it.
Back in the day, I was a wedding DJ, and I got hired to DJ a wedding at a historic hotel called the Glen Tavern Inn in Santa Paula, California. At this wedding, at this it's a Tudor style architecture, old school. I think it was built in 1911. I was actually DJing the wedding of a very good family friend of mine, and I met the daughter of the owner that night. And her and her friends, they were hanging out in the lobby, and she said, "You know, you're an amazing DJ. We should have you here as we have weddings like every weekend. You should be the house DJ. And I said, yeah, I absolutely should.
Yes.
Would be amazing. And I knew nothing about the building, and I knew nothing about, the history of it, but I fell in love. It's beautiful. It's historic and it's beautiful. What I found out about it is actually right across the street from the train station there in Santa Paula, California. And so the history of it was that it was the next train stop before Hollywood for anybody coming from Northern California through to shoot a movie in Hollywood in the early 1900s. Okay. So many Hollywood icons would stay there, but the one that they really take pride in is Harry Houdini, because while this hotel was so historic, it was a 2-story hotel. The third floor was just a completely open area. And when Harry Houdini would come through, he would demand to sleep in the same room as all of his contraptions, all of his props, anything that he was using in his shows. So he would always stay on the third floor with his things. So the train would roll up, they'd unload all of his props, take them up to the third floor. There's no elevators, so they would be carried up 3 stories of stairs and stored in this big open area. And there wasn't a room there, so he would just sleep there with his props. This is how the third floor looks today, but there have been rooms built in, so just imagine it just wider.
Okay.
And but that is kind of the energy up there if you stay there today.
Right. It reminds me of the ship.
Of the what?
Of the ship of the Queen Mary.
Oh yeah.
Like it
totally.
looks like a cruise hallway. A little wider, but that's what it reminds me of.
Yeah. So it's very historic. There's a lot of energy up there, and there's stories of like the train broke down at that station once while he was there, and he ended up having to spend like 3 or 4 weeks up there with his stuff, and before they could get the parts to get it fixed for him to go on to his next gig. The energy there is very palpable, and once you climb the stairs at the very top is what they call the bridal suite, because it's where the bride and groom stay whenever they're getting married there. There's a living area, a bar, a sleeping area, bathroom, of course. But then the rest of the hallway is just, it's very condensed, dark. And I think, it's still painted in a very like dark maroon, dark red feeling. This is actually the first story that you're seeing if you're looking at the screen. They have movie posters all over the walls because all of the movie stars would stop and stay there,
right,
on their way to Hollywood back in the day. But I would just say that the feeling on the third floor is very ominous, and that's because like during the early 1900s there were a lot of stuff that would happen up there on the third floor, and especially once they started putting in rooms up there, there were top secret poker games, all kinds of illegal stuff was happening up there. But there was a ringleader, a very strong cowboy presence, as psychics talk about him today. But at one point, he got very upset with a prostitute that he had been with in what is now called room 307. And as legend has it, she was beheaded and hidden in the closet in room 307 for a long time before she was discovered. And side note, if you go onto any like ghost hunting show or any like if the Travel Channel has a bunch of these shows that'll go and check out hauntings, United States hotel hauntings. Right. Most of them have been here, and so this is a very well-known location. But the beheaded prostitute in room 307 is very well known for its paranormal activity, and today still the alpha figure cowboy that was running the show is very well known for being up there, and an energy in the building. The second floor is known for children apparitions running back and forth and playing games and disappearing into walls, still today, as people stay at the hotel. And you can search the internet and find so many different stories from the Glen Tavern Inn in Santa Paula, California. But that is where I got to shoot my movie, The Haunted Man. And we spent a week there, 6 nights or 6 days, 5 nights and 6 days shooting the movie. We had a few stories to tell. So and I will just say, as I've mentioned earlier, I want to have a ghost experience.
Right.
And Jamie and I have spent I was the actual hotel DJ there for a good 6 or 7 years, and they would let me stay there whenever I wanted, and I stayed there so many times and never had any experience.
Never.
Ever, unfortunately. And sometimes I think maybe that's the reason why, as we've talked about, when you want to have the experiences, you don't.
So I'm trying to. Did you have one more story, or because I have something I was going to say about the Glen Tavern Inn?
Go ahead and say your thing.
So I probably have told you. I don't know if I've said this on this show or some other show, whatever. But my grandma was from Santa Paula, and I'm almost sure I've said this. She's from Santa Paula, and she lived through she wasn't in the path, but she lived through the San Francisco Dam break. Do you know about that?
Yes, that sounds familiar. That's not the fire.
No, it's the dam. So okay. William Mulholland, Mulholland, right? He was a very smart man. He had a lot of money too, and so he did a lot of things. And one of the things he did was teach himself how to build dams. So he built several dams around the area, and one of those was the San Francisco Dam, which I believe the base of it was up the Santa Clarita area. And what happened was he was self-taught. He built it. It started to break. And they came in one day and somebody called in and said, something's wrong here. And he had somebody go out and look at it, and they were like, nope, we're all good. And they're like, oh. But the dam broke, and it flooded the area and killed a lot of people. And so it went through the Santa Clarita Valley, and I was just trying to look it up, and I do believe that it went through where the Glen Tavern Inn is now. So it looks like it started up in northern kind of Santa Clarita. It went down by where Six Flags is now. It went through Piru, and then Fillmore, Santa Paula, and Saticoy, all the way into Ventura.
It could have been the thing. The Glen Tavern has been used as a hospital for some emergencies in the area. Yeah. I remember fires, but a dam might have been one of the big things.
So it just devastated the area. And so I believe that the Glen Tavern would be built after. But what I just think is interesting, because in Santa Paula there are farms and things, or a lot of migrant workers that were there, and many of them didn't speak English. They didn't know what was happening. People were coming through being like, gotta leave, you gotta leave, and they're like, I don't know what you're saying. And so a lot of people just died because they didn't know what was coming. But they did have people trying to get them out. And that's actually the reason I know this, is because my grandma was from there, and she was a little girl but she would say, like, I remember there was this guy they called Paul Revere, and he was going around like with his siren being like, leave, leave, leave. The water is coming.
Wow.
So my point is, in that very area where the Glen Tavern is, major destruction and death. So hauntings might make
Hauntings
sense.
galore. And all the limestone nearby.
Yeah.
I just made that up for my movie.
I'm going to believe it. But I mean, like, yeah. So a lot of things had to be rebuilt. I was just looking at this, and they were saying that one of the things it said here is that now the land is, rebuilt and vibrant, where it was just destruction. And there was a picture, you can still see the Chanapala train station as neighboring Bay Fig Tree, which apparently survived the dam break. And then it says, the Glen Tavern Inn is right across the street from that. So yeah, it must be in the.
Well, I must say, happy Halloween to everyone still watching, because hello, thank you for ringing in the new Halloween.
The new Halloween year.
With us.
This is Halloween. Yes. So yeah, just an interesting fact to think about when we talk about hauntings and why. That would have left a huge emotional impact on Scar, on the area.
Absolutely. And I'll just tell you about some of the experiences while we were shooting the film. So George Allman, who played Mr. Jameson in our movie, a lot of us stayed on the third floor. So I had a really good relationship with the staff and the owners, and I wanted to make the smallest footprint as I could while we were shooting the movie. And like I mentioned, like we were there for a whole week, and so a lot of us were staying on the third floor and in a very concentrated area of the second floor. But so George, who played Mr. Jameson in the film, was sleeping one night, and he kept feeling the comforter being pulled off his bed. And he was a crotchety man, grumpy, to say the least. And he would curse at the air, I suppose, and say, stop messing with me. And he told us the next morning, and all of us just went, none of us, that wasn't
me.
Us.
Just like me in my story. That
Yeah.
wasn't anybody.
People just someone pulling the sheets, the comforters off his bed all night long, and he just was very upset about it. We were filming on the third floor, and apparently, I think it was the scene where a frame flies off the wall in The Haunted Man, but one of the benches from the third floor got moved from one end to the other, and nobody who was there could explain how or why. Wow. We just turned around, and it was at the other end of the hall, and nobody moved it, and no one could explain how it got there, as far as I know. Sam and Tina were in room 307 for a few nights, and that was the beheaded prostitute room, which I just have to say, Jamie and I have stayed in and didn't have any experiences there. If you've watched the movie, it is the room where the Leo and Elise scene is, where there's the pounding on the wall, where Elise is asking Leo why he stopped ghost hunting, why he doesn't do it anymore. And he says, you have to stop focusing on the past at some point and just focus on what's in front of you. And he starts to interview her. And so that was the actual beheaded prostitute room. And Sam and Tina were staying there, and at some point, like, they lost control of their AC unit or cooling heating unit. It was really hot in there, and they couldn't stand to be in there. And one of the guys from the front desk came up with a remote or a thermometer, and it measured 66.6 degrees.
But it was hot.
And it said 666.
Yeah.
Which was weird.
That is weird.
At one point, there's a restaurant in the lobby of the hotel that we feature in the movie, and a bunch of our crew members went down to have breakfast one morning, and as one of them went to go sit down, their chair was pulled out.
Oh.
I wasn't there, but I heard the story. And yeah, finally, the most documented one that we got on camera, and I'll have to edit it in later for the YouTube version, was we were shooting a scene, and a door opened in the middle of the scene that we were shooting that nobody opened.
Yeah.
No human on set opened, but George and Stephanie were acting in the scene, and the door behind Stephanie just opened, and she looked at the camera, threw her props, and ran in her Jimmy shoes. Jimmy Choo shoes.
Now, what kind of door was that? Was that like one that latches, or?
So it latches for guests of the hotel. We had gaff taped it to not lock, because it was actually the room that I was sleeping in, but it also had all of like the logs and anything that anybody would need to get to,
right.
Like it wouldn't lock. But we were shooting the scene and we needed the door to be closed.
Okay.
So it was pulled shut, and there was nobody in that room. So the scene was being shot in front of that room, and the door just opened. And not only that, but it happened when she says a line that is, I can't remember exactly what it is now, but it was like, I can't make her appear.
Oh.
And then the door just
hello.
And yeah, she thought someone was playing a trick on her, but no, it was just, I mean, skeptic in me could be like it was a breeze.
Yeah, like change in pressure or something.
But it was the only time that the door had opened unexpectedly, as far as I know, throughout that whole week. And it was on camera after that line, and yeah.
That's weird. It is weird.
So this past weekend, I was just putting my laundry away, and the Travel Channel was on, and there's a new show, or at least it looked like a new show, called, oh gosh, now I forget what it's called. Jack Osborne hosts it.
Oh.
And it's called like The Most Tragic or Epic Night or something like that. Oh. And Jack and Sharon Osbourne are in the Glen Tavern Inn.
Yes.
Doing an investigation, and they're in this room 308, and Sharon like needs an ambulance and all this stuff, and I'm just like, this is crazy, because it was like literally just this past Sunday that I was like, it just came on TV, and I was like, wow.
Yes.
I need to start talking about the Haunted Man more on
right?
YouTube.
Yes.
So it's out there. It's out there on YouTube. So
it's so fun. I love it. It's such a good movie.
Thanks.
I love it.
I had one more story to tell about Camarillo State Hospital.
Yes. Tell it.
But I don't know. We're running super late. We're always like, how are we ever gonna like make a 2-hour show out of what we have?
I know every single time that we're like, oh, it's been how many hours now?
Man. It's not my personal story, and right. it goes into our duet.
It does. That's why I was like, tell it.
You want me to?
Yeah, I mean, you can summarize it.
Well, I was just gonna read.
Yeah, just read it.
All right. So this is written by a student of Cal State University Channel Islands, which is the university that now sits upon the property that you're seeing that used to be the Camarillo State Mental Institution, I think it was called. I could be wrong, but
yeah, I don't know if that's the exact name, but it was a mental institution.
This person who calls himself CSU Insane on creepyla.com says, many people ask if CSU Channel Islands is haunted. I answer, yes, and I live there. I have heard many things, from the sound of a woman crying in an abandoned building to heavy doors slamming shut to scratching on walls when no one is even around. Lights flicker in the locker-lined hallway, and rusting bars cover the windows to abandoned buildings. It looks like just a collage with some broken windows here and there. It looks like just a college with some broken windows here and there, but there is something more to the story. Until 1997, it was a mental hospital that was shut down as they could not keep up with all those kept there, as well as the costs. In 2002, it reopened, introducing Cal State University Channel Islands, the newest state school in California. A lot of unexplained activity takes place near the dorms, also known as Anacapa and Santa Cruz. In years past, Santa Cruz, the lower class dorms, mainly Building H, was used to house patients. There is no doubt in my mind that this is true, considering the next unnamed building over is broken apart with rusting windows and frames. If you take a walk on campus, you can look through broken windows and see papers littering the floor, sometimes medical supplies or even drawings on walls that can be quite chilling. Near the Island Cafe, which is located in the South Quad, there is a long hallway lined with yellow lockers. Keep walking until you get the open field near a parking lot and look to the right. That is the old medical lab and office. It is barred up and closed now, but 3 years ago I did manage to get inside. It was dark and cold. On the walls, words said, "No one can help me." And in the shower room, it said the letters, "Die." This is also the location where I had a door nearly swing and hit me in the face. It was around midnight, also the time where guards switched. Toward the back of the school is our well-known South Quad. It is next to Napa Hall, the art studio. It is said that late at night you can hear the disembodied sound of a former janitor jingling his keys as he cleans up what is no longer there. I am not the only one who has experienced things like this. I remember my freshman year suite mate telling me she saw her lamp shaking when there was no one and no reason for it to shake. Another old roommate of mine, Stephanie, and I found a door in our room to be locked and then heard it unlock and slowly open by itself. That set us on edge. On the other hand, I also loved it. Under our library isn't just books, or is it? Some people still believe there's a morgue still under our school library. I cannot be 100% sure, but who really knows for sure? There are many stories and facts going around since its closing, but how would you feel if there really was a morgue under your school library? Would you go down there for an adventure? I would.
Yeah, I know. I'd have to know. I'd be like, I have to know. I just gotta know if it's still there. I would probably be scared the whole time, but I gotta know.
So the reason I brought that up was because there were rumors that the Eagles wrote Hotel California based on the what was it called? Camarillo Mental Hospital.
And I've actually, like, we used to sing in a chorus there, and they had rehearsals in Anacapa Hall. And one time I was there early, and I went through because there's like one place to park, and then there's another place to park. And so I went to the park at the other place, and I was early, so I was like, well, I'm just gonna see what is this building right here. And I did. I looked in the windows, and it was barred. There was like the crossbars, metal, and I looked in, and it was full of papers. Yeah, it was abandoned, and it was full of papers and like shelves, and it was just a mess. And I was like, oh, like I didn't know about this part of the school's history. I was like, what is this? Like, it's weird. And eventually I did find out about it. But so it was one of those abandoned rooms from the hospital. I said full of just papers. And I was like, oh, like, and it looked like stuff had just been knocked over, and it was creepy, I will tell you. And I know that there's also people, like, I've heard students say that they hear weird things with the bells, because there's bells that like would ring, which you hear in the song about the mission bells, because they have bell towers, and so people say that they hear bells and music when there shouldn't be. Yeah.
Josepha Snyder in the chat is saying her son, she went there on a college tour with her son. He decided not to go there because it really creeped him out. The building where they kept the children are still there with toys and beds, etc. She's seen it. Creepy AF. We got a tour of the library and was told there was a morgue underneath. Whoa.
Yikes.
So
I can attest to the building that he's talking about with the bars and the papers, and everything's just knocked over. It looks like people just abandoned it and people went through it. Yeah, I've seen it.
How fun.
Yeah.
But there's rumors that the Eagles wrote Hotel California based on the Camarillo State Mental Hospital. Since then, in interviews, they have said, no, it's about Hollywood. It's about out-of-staters coming into Hollywood and realizing it's creepy and there's really weird people here, but we can never leave anymore.
Once you hear you're stuck.
Group. But it was interesting to me how like Camarillo State Hospital was lumped into the story of how this song possibly was inspired. And as you all know, we end every episode of Magical Mystery Hour with a duet.
Yes.
And I'm so excited to hear it. I haven't heard Amanda's part of it yet.
Yeah.
And Amanda, so why did this come to your mind?
Actually, exactly that reason for CSUCI, and having been there and knowing that this is a possible reason that the song exists, that this is, even though I know, they have said no, but I've seen kind of like comparisons and things done about that. And like, even they talk about like the Colita flower, they said it's like, there's a lot of them out there. I don't know. So yeah, when I was thinking about like songs that are haunted places, I was like, oh yeah, that one, that's totally what and it's creepy and weird. So I like it. It was great.
Love it. Well, here is Hotel California, Magical Mystery Hour style.
All right, here we go. On a dark desert highway, cool wind in my hair, warm smell of colitas rising up through the air. Up ahead in the distance, I saw a shimmering light. My head grew heavy and my sight grew dim. I had to stop for the night. There she stood in the doorway. I heard the mission bell. I was thinking to myself, this could be heaven or this could be hell. Then she lit up a candle and she showed me the way. There were voices down that corridor, thought I heard them say, welcome to the Hotel California.
It's such a lovely place, such a lovely face.
There's plenty of room at the Hotel California.
Any time of year, you can find it here. Her mind is Tiffany twisted. She's got the Mercedes Benz. She's got a lot of pretty, pretty boys that she calls friends. How they dance in the courtyard, sweet summer sweat. Some dance to remember and some dance to forget. So I called up the captain, said, please bring me my wine. He said, we haven't had that spirit here since 1969. And still those voices are calling from far, far away. Wake you up in the middle of the night just to hear them say, welcome to the Hotel California. Such a lovely place, such a lovely face. They're living it up at the Hotel California. What a nice surprise. Bring your alibis.
Mirrors on the ceiling, pink champagne on ice. She said, we are all just prisoners here of our own device. In the master's chambers, they gathered for the feast. They stab it with their stealing knives, but they just can't kill the beast.
Last thing I remember, I'm running for the door. I had to find the passage back to the place I was before. Relax, said the night man, and we're programmed to receive. You can check in anytime you like, but you can never, ever, ever leave. Welcome to the Hotel California. Such a lovely place, such a lovely face. They're living it up at the Hotel California. What a nice surprise. Bring your alibis.
Yeah.
You did a great job with that.
Well, so did you. I was like listening to the guitar and I was like, man, that's awesome. Like, it was so cool. I was like, oh, what's Paul going to do on the solo? And I was like, oh, that was good.
Paul's not going to do anything.
No, but it was great. It had just that like hint of the original, but it still being like your style. I loved it.
I love exploring it as like you know, because the original tune is like it's very male driven, and there's a lot of female enticement. But hearing it like as a journey, like imagining, you know, the voices as a couple,
right?
It's kind of like a Rocky Horror
Yes.
where the couple goes in.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too as I was doing it. It's like we're in, like, I was imagining it's like we're in the car together and like going somewhere, and we're like, oh, like, okay, we're in this place, and now we're stuck here.
Just discovered it.
Yeah.
Was it Cal State Channel Islands or the Camarillo Mental Institution, or was it Hollywood? It's up for y'all to decide.
Yes. Man, people want to hear this one again. They're like, put it up on YouTube. I mean, it is, but
as a standalone, I'm
yes,
sure they mean.
Yes, they do.
Thank you all for being here. If past midnight, of course, I'm always like, I don't think we have enough show to fill 2 hours and then 3 hours
every time.
Like, yep, we got it.
We did it.
But we rang in Halloween together.
Yay!
So thank you all so much for being here. And of course, we have to say again, thank you so much for joining this. Thank you for joining this episode of the Magical Mystery Hour.
If you enjoyed tonight's stories and you don't want to miss out on the next, please be sure that you are subscribed on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform.
Please leave the show a positive review and help more people who like this kind of show find our Magical Mystery Hour.
We'd like to thank producer Craig Jackman and our social media team, Dari Mills and Christina Beelan, for their promotional support.
Thanks again to our episode sponsor, Emily Thatcher, and a big thank you to David Benjamin for composing and recording our theme music.
Until the next mystery, good night.
Night, everybody.